Forward, that's always good.
Yeah.
It's helpful. You end up with just like a shaky camera.
Dude, I've done some car reviews, the whole review with no audio. And I had to go right back out and go do it again. That was...
How inauthentic does that feel after? Like it almost feels so different because...
It's different because it feels like, okay, the good thing is I know all the information. The bad thing is I know how the car feels and all the information.
Yeah,
right?
And it's hard to kind of
have
to make that feel like a first time you just said it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's more traditional car journalism, I would say. You know, because typically they drive the car a really, really long time, and then they go, okay, now I'll say everything.
Well, even in here, I've had issues where like something went wrong and people or somebody didn't like something and they're like, can we re-record? I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that.
No.
I was like, we can't talk for another hour and a half and just fix it.
Yeah.
So, there's a couple of episodes that are kind of sitting in queue right now waiting for some cuts. Some certain spots.
I see.
That's okay though. If, just be, as long as people say like, hey, maybe I shouldn't have said that. It's okay.
It's for them. If they want to cut things
Absolutely.
out, I'm fine with it. I say crazy things and I just own it.
Well, that's what those are for.
Yeah.
Those are legit.
Keep them on me.
I had to legitimately explain to somebody the other day the term tinfoil hat. I think it's because they were way younger than me and they did not get it. I was like, oh, wow, I guess since aliens are real now.
I've also made the joke that I painted the room with lead paint.
Oh my God. And they're like,
so that it's not penetrating. I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense.
It's a health hazard.
It's a health hazard.
Like, no, it's good, man. Like, that's how it's supposed to be. All right, well, guys, we got James Woods. James Wood?
Wood. No S.
Wood.
No S.
Yes.
I'm sure that happens all the time.
All the time.
It's like, oh, you're that, like, are you related to that famous actor? No.
S. That
not
darn
this
S.
time. Not this time.
So James Wood and David Patterson, that dude in blue.
That's me.
Freaking back on again, our yearly tradition. I kind of have this with a couple people where they do this like yearly route, come to the same races and same stuff. And it's like, I love having a nice yearly tradition with people. So friggin', what have you been up to this year? I mean, you've been all over the place. You've done a lot with T-Pain, which is freaking cool.
Yeah. Speaking of,
I saw that.
Yeah, no. Nappy Boy Automotive is really, really cool to work with. And it's a really fun brand because I think a lot of people don't realize that he's been a car guy even before he was famous. And that's the authenticity, right? It's not just, I should just do this as a trend. Because if you might remember, like, I feel like almost 4 years ago, people would put like JDM cars on their rap albums. It's almost like a trendy thing. And then it just kind of died. But no, he can drive. He's talented. He's good. And his crew is super cool too. Shout out to like Rob and all those guys. They're great. And of course, Hurt going over there.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool.
That's a good fit for him.
Yeah. And other than that, just I've been trying to, I know this sounds kind of contradictory as I sit here right now, but I'm trying to travel less because last year I flew almost 300,000 miles and it about killed me. And what's funny is I actually was filming so much that I actually released less. So instead of being able to film then edit, then film to edit, I was mass filming and getting no time to edit, right?
Do you only edit at home? Or
yeah, for the most, I try not to because I go crazy.
Yeah.
Editing on a laptop too, I can do it just fine. But yeah, I like being in the studio and being like, I'm editing here. But since my stuff is, it takes a long time to edit. It's not like vlog content, and that's not a dig on vlog content. It's a lot simpler to put together.
100%.
Yeah.
I can edit on a laptop, but everything I edit is simple as can be. I try to make it that way on purpose. And I think there's a different level of viewer that wants to see like artistic level content. And I'm okay with the viewer that doesn't care about that, I guess.
Well, nowadays it's just more I know we talked about this extensively last time. It's definitely more character and story driven than anything nowadays. Yeah. And at the same time, you're a dad now, which is pretty amazing. How is it so far?
It's awesome, man. I mean, shout out to my wife because she does so much for him. I mean, I was busy all day today and she just shout out to her 100 times over.
That's amazing, though. Well,
So,
congratulations.
it's awesome.
I'm super happy for it. I knew you were stoked about it as we looked at a tortoise in your backyard. You're like, yeah, I'm going to be a dad. I'm like, whoa.
I know, because it had kind of just happened when
Right.
you were here last time, so it's like
time
perfect timing
flies,
now.
dude.
He's 2 months old, so it's kind of
Exactly. I don't want to hog the whole thing, but yeah, James, go ahead and introduce yourself and all that good stuff.
yeah. What are you up to, bud?
Hey, so my name's James. What am I up to now? Well, I am unemployed now, which is super fun.
I was gonna cue the clapping.
Whoa, whoa.
So, yeah, I worked for a big shop called National Speed. They ended up closing a shop last week and laid off a bunch of us. So I ended up basically having some free time. And Dave's like, hey, let's go to Florida. I'm like, all right,
Interesting.
so cool. That sounds way more fun than sitting in my house doing nothing.
Which National Speed? Because there's quite a few.
The
of them.
Richmond one.
There's two. So
Okay.
they closed the Richmond one. I worked remote, which is kind of nice. So I was like a sales guy. So if you called me and you're like, hey, James, I want whatever. I want 1,000 horsepower Camaro or
XYZ,
or something.
yeah.
Like, we'll talk about it, figure out what you're doing with the car, what your goals are, and how best we're going to basically achieve what you want with the budget you have to make sure it's going to work and it's going to be reliable and all that fun stuff. So we built a lot of basically Mopar, Ford, and GM stuff, and then we specialized a lot in Supras. So
I was gonna say, well, different Supra, but I'm friends with Vlad.
Yeah.
Who is?
Yeah, Vlad tuned the white car.
He's like the head
Yep.
tuner there.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Or-
Vlad's our tuner there.
And Vlad's
No,
no.
Vlad still is there.
Okay. I
Vlad's
was
a
gonna
G.
say.
Yeah.
Vlad is awesome.
Stick shift 720 car or something like that.
7-second V160 stick shift
Yeah.
car.
It's
So,
insane.
Just
Fastest synchro car, I think.
yeah,
currently.
fastest synchro car.
Yeah.
But no, like everybody who worked at or works at the Wilmington one and worked at the Richmond one are all very talented people. Really good techs, really good everything.
Yeah.
But, you know, things happen. It stinks.
It's an interesting business model. From when I first saw it pop up, I was like, wow, like a massive speed shop is kind of an odd thing almost. Normally speed shops are like kind of little mom and pop, one guy runs it and does all the wrenching. So it was an interesting business model to begin with. But
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think it was cool because, I mean, it originally started where like, we all know bad speed shops out there. I'm sure every single one of us has been affected by some sort of bad speed shop. And
no, David's never happened.
Watch my Coupe series,
that was a fun
please.
whole adventure. That was great. Never forget me having to our tuner, Pineapple.
Oh, no.
Uncle. He called me and is like, "Hey, like something happened with Dave's car, and he's sad, and I need you to go take a head off a 2J." I'm like, "I've never done that." And he's like, "Well, you got FaceTime, and you know how to turn a bolt, so it's not that hard."
While I'm editing upstairs, this is when I still worked at home. I'm editing upstairs and I just hear, how do I do this over FaceTime? I come downstairs like a few hours later and the head's off my car. I'm like, well done, man. And to be fair, you wrote down everything.
Oh yeah, I had a whole notepad
and had
going.
a bolt organizer. I was like, okay, we're fine. So when my tuner came back, Pineapple or Mikey came back, it was like, oh, it's all here. And put it all back together. It wasn't bad.
Well, the other thing is taking things apart isn't so bad.
It's putting
Taking
them back
things
together.
apart isn't. Yeah, that's
the
not
easy
where
part.
things get tough.
Putting it back together, that's the hard part. That's when Uncle came in town, and then he like put it back together, and I was sitting there helping and doing whatever he needed.
I try to avoid that on my 2Js, putting the head back on.
Yeah.
I try to let the guys at induction do that.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, how the cams can be so easily snapped due to the pattern you do, because it might seem logical to go like here, 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 but if you don't do it a very specific way, it just cracks them.
I just try.
gnarly.
I try to avoid working on stuff now. So like I've raced basically RX-7s for 12 years now. So I got into road racing hill climb way back when I was in college. Bought an FC RX-7, had a rotary in it, worked for the longest time. Did
Naturally
great.
aspirated rotary.
Ran for 8 years, killed it. Then we did some peripheral port motors. Did not have good experience with the shop. Cost us a couple years of racing and some sponsors. And so then I got mad and then went and got Junkyard LS. Put it in. We built the Junkyard LS ourselves. We grenaded on the dyno, so that was super fun. We learned this afterwards, which is never just happens to be on the internet, or at least we couldn't find it. But we got a Melling, like high flow, high pressure oil pump like you're supposed to. Turns out you're not supposed to use the spring that comes in that pump. And no one told me.
Yeah.
And
Which
we fired it up. I remember we were on the dyno and we just had a bunch of oil pressure, and it seemed normal to me because I came from like my race rotary motors where like they run 90 psi oil pressure at idle, and it like made sense. And the LS is doing like,
it's normal.
That seems that's been my life for 8 years. So I'm like, yeah, that seems totally fine. Turns out not totally fine. And then I think I can remember probably like the 8th pull, it just spit rods 1 and 2 on the ground. So
yeah, a lot of people don't realize that there's a nice happy median for LSs on oil pressure, and if it's too high, it's probably about to come apart, and if it's too low, it's also about to come apart. People think too high it sounds good, but it's not good.
That was my whole idea. I'm like, it seems fine. So yeah, we killed. It was a junkyard 6.0. 299 heads. We used a Viper T56 in the car and killed it. So then we went to we did it right the next time. We got 408 stroker motor, aluminum block, LS3 heads, good like Texas speed rotating assembly and cam, and then put it back in, and it was a lot of fun. Made around like 500 wheel, and it's just fast for a 2,300 pound car.
Yeah, FC. Yeah, it's cool.
I've always worried doing things right sometimes on LSs ends up going wrong as well. Sometimes on an LS, you just want to do things as cheap as possible because they all break the same, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird deal where the $50,000 motor also breaks the same as the junkyard 5.3.
Exactly.
Especially when you try to boost them.
So I broke the nice motor at Gridlife last year in South Carolina, and it was just a random failure that we just had a rough time with.
I guessed it.
Yeah.
They
do. So I was getting on grid and I heard like a weird sound. I'm like, it's probably fine. And I just it completely
Famous
ignored
last
it
words.
like I shouldn't have. And then I get on the radio to Ty and I'm like, hey man, this thing's broken. And he's like, what? I'm like, I am stranded on like the back straight and it just had a loud bang and it won't start. And he's like, oh, that's fun. Get it back to the pits, and we got a garage, which is nice because it started pouring down rain, and we start pulling it apart. Yeah,
there's like garage. I don't know anything about Gridlife.
So it depends on the track. So it's all at road courses. So we're at CMP, which is Carolina Motorsports Park. Do you remember a show called "Are You Faster Than a Redneck"?
A redneck. Yeah, Fortunato raced in that show.
Are you faster than a redneck?
It lasted one season.
It was on
Speed Channel.
Yeah, Speed Channel. Basically, they got import cars to go race against rednecks and muscle cars on a road course.
So it'd be like a GT 500, like a 1314 versus like a K-Series swap Civic by Fortunato, like stuff like that. It was a cool idea, but it was a lot of fun, but like it was way over the top. I mean, the guys who were the rednecks were like, oh, Billy Bob here. Like, oh, man.
In a GT 500.
Yeah.
Very redneck car.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
All the rednecks.
Yeah, but it was very much a concept of like import versus domestic kind of thing. I remember they DQ'd
an RX-7
because it had an LS in it. They said,
fair.
They go, wait a darn minute. That's not okay. R35 came in and smacked everybody one episode. Yeah. I remember that. But yeah, that was the concept of the show. Yeah, but that's where they filmed that show, isn't it?
Yeah, they did CMP. So like CMP has some kind of standalone garages. It's honestly like a glorified, essentially carport, but just big roof.
Somewhere to be.
You got power.
Something.
Yeah, it's better than nothing. So Ty started pulling the valve covers off, found a bent valve that got stuffed in the head, and turns out that a rocker bolt came loose. Then the rocker kind of moved basically up a little bit, push rod fell out of that cup, and then push rod hit the very end of that rocker and dented the hell out of it. And then I guess it just gave us enough valve lift to jam a valve and a piston.
So you wouldn't have had that with your rotary.
That's true.
None of that failure would have happened.
None of that would have happened.
Well, what's so funny is when James and I we met at Lanier Raceway, which is where I frequent almost every weekend now. And where all the drift events and stuff are. But they do like fun autocross events there too with Caffeine and Octane. And you're rocking the freaking NA rotary with like 90 horsepower.
Oh, loud.
So loud.
It was crazy loud.
So loud. I went and reviewed it when it was in that form up in your area in South Carolina at the time. And I just remember, like, anytime I did a pull in that video, I was like, please no one watch me. Because it went nowhere. It made so much noise, but it felt good, though. It drove nice, but I remember I 2 months after that, I drove my JZ 240 to your autocross.
Broke.
And I snapped an axle right off the line. No truck or trailer. Just like, well. And then Sloan came and rescued me. Yeah. So that was pretty good.
That was good.
Downside about a really slow car that's also really loud is how long it takes to get away from you.
Yeah.
Like when it's loud and fast, like, you know, it's gone in a second, but like.
The one saving grace to that car, which made it super fun. I think, so we made around like 170 out of that motor, which is great. But then we had a super short final drive in the diff. So it was a 488. And it was incredibly short. And I think topped out like 130. But it would move and it would get there quick. So it was great.
Don't those rotaries really like a short final drive? Because I've seen some with like 510 in the back.
So those were there was like a 512. And that was like a special like Mazda speed like comp thing that they did for their like factory race cars, just like the 488. Those are kind of your two options. Because factory, these cars came with anything from like a 3.9 to a 410 to a 430. So those were like your factory options.
Yeah,
and then for
you do a 410
crazier
and
stuff.
Anything like a muscle car, or not muscle, but you know, Mustang, Camaro, whatever, you're burning tires the whole time.
Spicy.
That's what we like have in the LS car now is a 410.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
The Viper gearbox, because we had to like balance out super long Viper gears with like, we need a diff to somehow make it play nice so we actually have usable.
Yeah, because they gear those Vipers a little differently than like your standard T56 Magnum. Because they're more for like half-mile long.
Pretty much, yeah. Like what are they? You can do like 90 in first gear in a Viper or something like that. Yeah, it's.
Well, you kind of have to, or else you'll kill yourself if they toned it down anymore.
Yeah,
it would be a little bit too much. Vipers are normally trying to kill the driver as is.
First gens especially. Oh. When you drive a first gen Viper, if you ever get the chance, have you driven first gen?
No.
So first gen Viper is truly where like the reputation comes from for sure.
Because only fifth gen. I'm spoiled.
I love the fifth gen.
The fifth gens are cool.
The fifth gens are rad, but the first gen, the first time I drove a first gen, I remember getting on it the first time, and I'm like, dude, a doctor or a lawyer who bought this car, no wonder they totaled like half of them. I mean, I think, forgive me if I'm wrong, whoever can probably look it up. Apparently, I've heard down the grapevine it was like 50% of the first production Vipers were totaled. Wow. I mean, and it's a bathtub with a V10 in it, dude. Yeah. I mean, the interior's whack, the top is awful. I mean, you could tell everything was an afterthought.
Yeah.
Can't get out of it without burning yourself.
Oh, I singed my foot or my leg getting out of it.
And even like when you have the top up, you can't actually open the door, right?
No, it's something weird. I can't remember, but I drove it with the top on. That's what, we didn't even bother. It was like, no, I'm okay. I remember the Murcielago as well. Completely different car, I know. But the Murcielago Roadster had like one of the worst tops ever made. And you had to get out, and it took, I think Ed Bolian told me it took him like 30 minutes to get that top on. And I'm just like, jeez. Because that's why like he has a Roadster, and he just leaves it off. It's like, if I want to take it out, I'm going to get rained on. It's whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's only such a big opening anyways. You'll be fine. Just drive fast.
Go fast enough, and then it'll just go right over. Just
drive really fast in the rain, and you'll be fine in your Murcielago.
Peak safety. Peak safety.
It's good. Those are such cool cars, the Murcielago.
They are. I mean, what's really neat is I know a lot of people who watch my stuff don't really care about the supercar stuff as much, and that's okay. But I got to drive like what I call the Scholastic Book Fair car. I got to drive the Diablo SV from Ed. And it was, of course there's better cars out there because it's aged,
Mostly everything.
Exactly. But it was still really fun, just to have that Dumb and Dumber mobile. That's what I call it. Because I just think of, Lloyd Christmas driving around the Diablo. And, because there's a member in Dumb and Dumber at the very end when they have the IOUs, and he goes, "That's a car, $250,000." And but no, it was still a really cool experience. He wrapped it a really bright color, so it's
a bright green, right?
It's actually really rad in person. I forgot how much like the Diablo has such a presence in person. It looks so good. I've never seen Rob Doms in person, though.
He's got a yellow one.
He's got a fixed headlight one, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah. But those wheels are so funky on it. They almost don't fit the wheel.
So fitment is a complete afterthought until about like 2005, it feels like. Like, if you go see a Ferrari 360, it is like all the way in. Yeah. Like, you would get made fun of by everybody if it was now. And like they just didn't care. There's like whatever wheels and tires, whatever, threw them on. And I call that one the Bam Margera Ferrari because it's like Viva La Bam and all that. But it just straight up all the way tucked in, and it was just about driving it. Nobody cared.
It almost seemed like, well, they kind of built the car, and then they were like, hey, you know, Pirelli, we need these tires this size. And they were like, yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, we need them to be this wide. And they were like, yeah, that's not happening. So they couldn't even fill out the wheel well.
Well, the 360 was the first Ferrari I ever drove, and it had the F1 gearbox in it, and wow, it was awful. I remember you would click on it, and you would go, oh, like you would do that buck after like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I heard the gated ones are cool, but.
Well, we were joking the other night about like Gallardos. You just don't see them.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah.
Like the twin turbo ones that were everywhere. Like everybody had these twin turbo Gallardos. You don't see them anymore.
If you do see them, they're typically the LP cars, which are the later models with when the taillights were refreshed.
The
and the
5.2.
It's a LP 560. So like the smaller headlights, smaller taillights. The one I borrowed from Ed Bolian, which he didn't tell me that the gas gauge didn't work, and I got stranded. It was a flooded Gallardo. What do you expect? But it was a non-LP car. And those were the 5 liters, and they sounded awesome. Like I knew they weren't as reliable, and they had like the clutch issue and all that. But yeah, those things sounded good, but they aged a lot. I mean, a lot. I mean, the exotic cars now probably are going to kind of feel the same forever now. But back then, you could really see the progression of them like every single time.
But I feel like the Huracan will be good
for a long time.
For a lot longer
time.
than the Gallardo.
It's more Audi based. It makes sense. And dude, people sleep on the R8. The R8's such a good car.
Yeah, same kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It's a better car.
But still, like that car, I don't think is going to age out quite like the Gallardo.
Especially the Performantes, stuff like that. They're going to age really well. I mean, the Evos even look good, like the last one they put out, but or the STOs. Those things are. Bangers,
well, they make them all-wheel drive too.
Yeah,
because they're rear-wheel drive factory. I'm pretty
then the twin turbo guys, they'll make it all-wheel drive.
Make it all-wheel drive.
Yeah,
safety.
Yeah, which makes sense when you're putting almost 3,000 horsepower through them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one that roll races around here locally all the time. It's like 2,000 horsepower STO. It's insane. It's pretty spicy. It's like a Nerf gun color though.
That's
like
dope.
Everything, like the full Nerf gun colors.
We're so spoiled by horsepower numbers, man. Like, man.
One of my buddies from college, he works for Noonan Race Engines in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and they started doing billet V10s for the Audis and Lamborghinis.
Interesting, because before it was just Proline.
Yeah, right across from Fuel Tech.
Yeah, they've had the market cornered.
I think they got out of it.
Interesting.
And I think, I'm not totally sure, so I could be totally wrong here, but I want to say they got out of it because I haven't heard them doing any engines for a while. And I know like Noonan's doing it, and I know Sissio's getting like their stuff from Noonan.
Yeah. Noonan
things like that.
Badass engines. Yeah. Those things are top level. Like all their V8 stuff is like peak performance, most high tech, but I'm pretty sure it's an Australian company, which they are known for their good engineering.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't really think that Australia is known for their peak engineering, but they are.
Yeah.
You know, not to make fun of any Australians, but it's just not the stigma.
When I kept breaking LSs and stuff, I called Barry and I'm like, hey man, you want to test you want to see how good one of your LS motors are? Just like, let's put one in my car and let's just see how I break it. Because I just break everything now.
Break a billet one. It's fine.
He's like, yeah, you'll find a way to break it probably. And I'm like, maybe.
Research and development, they said, you know.
Well, even like the Viper V10s, they do some weird stuff with those. They don't do billet, but there's a couple companies that'll like cut the top of the motor off and then put like a whole iron sleeved type of thing on it.
Interesting.
It's not the best way I've heard to do it, but they've done some crazy things. I mean, they're making big power again.
Sure.
More power than me. So they're doing something right that I'm not doing. Maybe they just have more pocketbook.
That's also always a possibility. Just more.
There's more finances going to it. That helps.
That helps a lot, I'm sure. Yeah.
That's normally the difference between me and the guy with the 3,000 horsepower Lamborghini.
It's just money.
It's just green.
It's just money. That's all it is at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's funny. I was in Austin one time. I was there for Texas Drift Academy with Josh Robinson, and we stopped by Calvo's place. I'd never seen it. And we go in there, and Calvo comes out, and he's like, man, this freaking supply crisis is just so awful. And because it was crazy, because you could see that pretty much all the cars were ready. It's just Motecs were short, or ECUs were short, or wiring was short. And then stuff would get lost in the mail when it finally did show. It was like, that has to be stressful, to where it's just, of course, the one thing or whatever. But yeah, the Viper stuff's crazy. I drove a Nth Moto one, and it was still stick shift, and it was awesome. That car was awesome. I mean, dead hooked every single time. I mean, the Motec traction control stuff blows my mind every time I drive it, because it feels normal.
It's so
And
cool.
Aaron at Nth Moto is an absolute tuning genius on that kind of stuff. Like his Kratos car that they drive all the time, that silver one.
That thing's gorgeous,
It's
too.
unreal
So cool.
good.
So cool.
I think it went like a 680 on the drag strip. Like
Lord.
ACR
And it's like
trim
mint
still.
looking. Yeah. So
When you
so
look at it, you
nice.
can't see the cage. It's so tucked in a Viper that you can't see it. I'm like, you can't even fit in this car. Somehow you tuck the cage hidden enough. And then you open the hood and you don't see anything either. I'm like, this is...
Yeah, the Viper, let alone, is probably the one car, if somebody had claustrophobia, it's not the car to put them in. It's a tight car, especially the older ones. The newer ones aren't so bad, but the older ones are like, you're in there,
they were
in there.
tight. Like, if you're-
New Ford GTs like that too. You're like, if you have a passenger and you're driving the new 4G, your shoulders are literally touching. You better be friends with them.
That car is completely irrelevant these days.
Yeah, unless
Completely.
you're super into racing, like the Mark IV just came out, which is like it's not street legal. I just rode in it, and it was bananas. Like, it lapped a Pagani Zonda R on track, and it was super cool. But it was still
Pagani
cool, though.
Zondas
It was cool to see it. Come on, it was cool to see it.
It was cool. I'm sure it was
Yeah.
cool to see it.
Yeah, but it was gnarly. It was out there hanging with like some old F1 cars and stuff too. Like, I went to this thing called the Velocity Invitational. I had almost no knowledge about it, and it's kind of like America's take on Goodwood. Like, they're trying to have their own Goodwood Festival of Speed. So if you bring a race car out, it has to be real, and you have to race it wheel to wheel. So Senna's old F1 car, racing. It was dope. Like, that kind of stuff. I saw a Ferrari, what's the really expensive one that sold for like 250 million or whatever?
5.9.
Yeah, it was out there racing.
One of the test
Something like
Costas or
that.
something?
No, it was 250 GTO.
Okay.
Yeah.
Racing. It was cool. RS200 out there, old Lancia Group B cars, all racing against each other.
You'd have to take
So
like
just
a-
for a historical nerd moment, it was cool. Yeah, super bougie, of course, but it was neat. I got to ride in some really cool stuff, but yeah, the new 4GT is really cool. But you're right, not a lot of people talk about it anymore. And that, I will say though, maybe a part of it is Ford moving on to the GT3 platform for Multimatic. And I got to tour Multimatic, by the way. That is crazy. The GTD is rad, but it's $300,000. You know?
That car's not going to be relevant either.
Yeah, it's so cool though. I hate how cool it is.
It's cool,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
By
the way-
I was talking about this the other day
Yeah.
about concept cars and how much I hate them.
Yeah.
I've grown to hate concept cars.
Yeah.
I loved them growing up as a kid. Grown to hate them.
Do you find them like almost like false promises in a way?
Yes.
Yeah.
So like the
FT1,
GT,
FT1.
Yes.
FT1. Yeah.
the GTD, right? Is that what
Yeah,
it is?
Yeah,
GT3.
that's the Mustang.
It's a
That's
GT3 car, but streetable. That's it.
Yeah, but I'm fine with like that is basically a concept car, but it's a limited run.
Yeah.
That I'm fine
It's like
with.
a homologation car.
It's
Make limited
it's a
run
homologation car.
Yeah.
As soon as you kind of see it that way, it's almost more cool. You're like, you know what? All right, you can go racing in it. It has DRS. It can go 210 mile an hour. It's bananas. But Jim Farley, Ford CEO, who I got to meet, he's a super nice guy, and I forgot he was related to Chris Farley, and I can never unsee it.
Well, once you see
And
it, you're like,
you can't unsee it.
You're like, are you brothers?
But I was out there at this Ford Performance event and hanging out with the RTR guys, and they're like, hey, Ford has their Super Van 4 here. The crazy thing they won Pikes Peak in their class with. It's an EV that makes like whatever, 2,000 horsepower, whatever it is. You know how it is. And they're like, you want to go for a ride? I'm like, sure. I get in. You go, hi. I always like want to introduce myself to whoever's driving me because you don't want to be that silent influencer holding their phone, right? And I go, hey, I'm David. Nice to meet you, man. And he goes, Jim. And it was Jim Farley giving ride-alongs to everybody. And I'm like, this guy's about it, you know? And that's not me like sucking up to Ford. It just makes me happy to see people racing. And then he competed, I think, in GT4 class in 24 Hours of Daytona.
Yeah, he was in
he raced in Daytona.
GTM.
Really cool. But yeah, it's really neat to see what they're doing. They're going to race Bathurst with the supercar class. I think that's pretty neat. Yeah, I went to their big like press thing where they unveiled that they had 50 drivers this year.
Just for
every motorsport. Yeah, Top Fuel
sick.
all the way to Bathurst, all the way to Checo Perez was there. That's kind of neat.
I wonder if they're ahead of like Toyota or
Yeah, well,
definitely ahead of Chevy.
Yeah.
I think Chevy maybe has a guy.
Yeah, Chevy's just doing like, I mean, I don't even think it's technically Chevy, but like just Corvette racing, which is separate from Chevy, and they're campaigning. They're
But
like
Toyota's deep rooted in racing.
Oh,
but
big
then
time, big
Ford
time.
is probably next in line.
They're going back to Le Mans, which is cool. Just like, it was just neat to see. You know, it's not so much like, oh, wow, an automotive company is like going racing like everywhere. Yeah, Jim Farley gets up on stage. He's like, I dare any CEO to race me in the GTD. I'm like, bet, okay, I want to see that happen. Cool. Imagine like Akio Toyota racing Jim Farley on Road Atlanta or something.
That'd be dope.
It'd be freaking sick.
Yeah, that would be a fun charity event.
Yep.
Just have the CEOs.
all the CEOs racing.
I'd be so down to see that. I would fly to go see that.
Like whatever
I would go
class,
see that.
Just get all like the GT4 cars from
Yeah, just
Porsche
let
and
'em
Toyota, BMW, Mercedes, Ford,
pay-per-view
Chevy.
event.
Oh my God,
That would
we're
be
giving
genius.
them this idea, Cooper.
I know, come on.
I would go do it.
Over $1 million marketing
These CEOs need more money.
idea. Exactly.
Well, yeah, he also has kind of interesting history because I think he helped launch the Prius and like all this other stuff. He's at Toyota for 25 years.
Yeah, Lexus.
Yeah,
and he was at
everything.
Toyota and then Lexus heading the U.S. market for a long time, I believe.
Long time.
And then switched to Ford.
Yeah, 'cause I think he has some family lineage in Ford. I think his granddad or somebody worked for them. But yeah, it's just neat to see a CEO.
They own Callahan Auto.
Yeah.
It's his family.
Yeah, I just
The
think it's
Farleys.
cool. I just think it's cool because he owns like an old Celine Fox body and all that stuff. But
I think there's a video of him driving like the F-150, the electric one across country.
Oh, the Lightning.
Yeah, the Lightning.
And then
Yeah.
they're like, how would you think? He's like, it needs work.
yeah,
Hey, the
least he's
honesty
honest,
is
though.
cool. It's like, because I feel like most people are like, oh yeah, it's great. Everybody should buy this. It's like,
That was the nicest thing he could think of, though. It needs some work.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
can't like shit on your company, but you also, if it needs work, you
yeah. But
need fix
to me, I don't know. It's like a reverse psychology for me because if the CEO is that honest about it, then they're going to work on it. You know, instead of like, yeah, it's great.
It'd be hard
covering it up.
It'd be hard to sit there and say that car's great.
Yeah,
If
you know.
that F-150 electric deal, the Lightning.
Yeah.
The Lightning.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to be like, oh, this thing's awesome. Better than any other EV out there. Have you driven the new Cybertruck?
No, not yet. No.
That whole thing was wild. That just
It's so interesting how like that
Just
car's
steam.
reputation goes from this to this to
There was
this
so
to
much
this.
drama in
So much
in
drama.
your world.
Yeah, I stay out of that crap, dude.
but it was like
I mean,
drama in the journalist world. I was like, what is this journalist
and
drama?
it's funny because Jason's video, the Haggerty video in particular, it was incredibly made. You know, it's edited well and everything. And I think people are like, oh, he made it sound like a commercial. It's like, well, I don't know.
I could only watch 5 minutes because of the way it was edited.
Yeah, it's
I
all
thought
over,
it was too good. I thought it was too like
Too overly
it was
produced.
Too much. I couldn't watch it. I was like, this is.
I get it, but it
too
was
many
well
cuts.
made. But then you know, it became a whole thing. And the thing is with me is I try not to make a judgment on a car until I personally experience it and especially see it. You know, that's always a big thing is none of these modern cars photograph well. Almost none
I have a
of
little
them.
one right there. Little tiny one.
Hey,
Hey,
that's
thing
the bulletproof one right there. You know what I mean?
Close
so
enough.
ugly.
Yeah. But man, speaking of cars, how many have I driven so far this trip, James?
We're at 10. I think.
We're at 10.
We're at 10.
Zigzagging all over Florida.
A lot of traveling.
We drove VMP's development car today.
That was dope.
That was dope.
It went nines.
9999.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fast. I was impressed. I mean, like it's so funny because, you know, I had these other two cars to drive today. One was a turbo Camaro, It had the 4.8 in it.
That was a cool car.
Yeah, it was a 2010 Camaro.
V6
What was that,
Camaro
fourth
too.
Gen?
No, it's 5th gen.
Yeah.
Is it 5th gen? Okay,
yeah.
that's right, 5th
4th
gen.
gen is
Those
They all
D-shaped,
start blending together
D-shaped
for me.
taillights,
Yes.
before the redesign.
Transformer Camaro.
Yep.
But then the 5th gen also had a redesign.
Yes,
That made it a lot
It was like a
nicer.
That's what it
facelift
is.
mid whenever they did
Yeah,
it.
it started as a V6 car, swapped to a 4.8 big turbo. It was fast. Spun tires, top of third gear. It was gnarly. TR6060 car,
Fender
and then
exit.
a old school, like really well restored SN95 Cobra. And that was more for the story. It was a father-son car, really nice. And then we drove the VMP car, and it's funny. My car's very similar, setup wise, and I've driven the S650 a lot. I have a ton of seat time in that car. But it wasn't until probably that chassis was squeezed that I started to notice, like, okay, this is a better car, like than the S550 was. Like, because you felt it just turned up to 11 to what the factory power was. And you're like, oh, yeah, it's great. It made 810 to the tire in 93. It's
also,
pretty great.
It just felt like a proper, like GT cars, like just Maseratis or BMWs or the Mercedes, just the nicer, like upper scale cars. Like they just have the feel of like, this is actually a nice car. And I want to go,
nice, yeah.
I want to go like drive cross country in this. Like I'm comfortable and things like that. And the new S650 had those vibes versus like just the older Mustangs.
It was your first time in that
V8.
car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they, it stinks because the Mustang has gotten a lot more expensive.
That's a
But
downfall.
then you drive it and you go, well, because materials are better, infotainment, the screens aren't for everybody, but you get over it pretty quick, in my opinion. But I think they said somewhere in the neighborhood of 55 for that car, and it had all the Brembos and all the options and all the heat and cool seats and all the options. But it's hard because I got that white one for 30. So that's a big difference.
Yeah.
That's not a small difference. It's
That's
not
a
like
steep increase.
the
Dark Horse, I will say I saw one, and
what are your thoughts?
It was really nice.
I think they look great.
They look really good. It was in that like dark blue, kind of like almost gray blue with all black trim.
That's
what
that's the first one I drove as well.
The badge is stupid. I will say, from
I call
like
it
5 feet
Charizard.
away, you
It's
can't
Charizard.
tell what it is. It's just like a little...
It is Charizard.
It looks
I'll
like
die on a
coffin.
hill.
It looks like a coffin from 5 feet away.
Oh yeah.
It's just like a shape.
Yeah, it's a weird badge.
Yeah. I get what they're trying to do, but I will say the real shame of that car is I get why people expected more power out of it and everything. Like, I understand it on paper, but it wasn't until I drove one. I drove one in the mountains. And I drove one on track, and I drove the S650, the normal one, and then I drove that. There is a massive feel difference. I mean, the suspension's better. That's why I tell people and the Tremec transmission, of course.
That was a big
Big difference. Like when you're shifting into that Tremec, there is just something about it, man. And at the same time,
Finally, they changed.
Yeah.
And we're grenading MT82s for fun.
Right. Well, Smurf's still gone. Just saying. But
You have Tremec for that thing, don't you? That we
still
need to
hasn't
put
gone
the
in
car?
there because the MT82 hasn't died.
Well, chop.
Stop.
Drive that thing a little harder.
Yeah, right. But anyway, point of the matter is there is a big difference between the two cars. I would say more people should look at it like how back in the day, Mustang GT to Boss 302 or Mustang GT to Mach 1. It's much more of that difference than that difference
but it got heavier as
it did.
well.
It did.
Less, and not really a power bump. So that's kind of unfortunate.
It power bump, in quotations.
How much
right?
heavy are we talking about? What was the weight?
It's more of like the luxury items inside the interior.
I mean, that makes sense.
A couple 100 pounds.
Yeah, but
Just something.
I would take a nicer car for a little bit more weight.
We're talking
than
4,000 pounds, though.
yeah. But
These things are boats.
That's a lot.
You know what's funny? I didn't even know about the weight difference when I drove them. So maybe that's just a placebo thing. I just
they didn't say
notice.
what the GTD weighed. And
it's probably real
Hella
light.
light.
Hella light.
Hella light.
It's
why
transverse
wouldn't they say that
axle.
then?
Yeah.
If it was
I
so
don't know.
light, they would have said it. If it was heavy, they wouldn't have said it.
Oh no, they wouldn't have said it.
That's
So
a good
that's
point.
why I was like, when they first announced it, I was like, they were like, light this, light that, light that. I'm like, okay, but how light?
Yeah.
Never said a number. I'm like, okay, so it's heavy.
Oh yeah.
And you're just trying to.
Solid point.
I was kind of disappointed in that I couldn't find that anywhere.
It'll probably come out eventually.
Maybe marketing just forgot that day.
Because it can only be so
they're sick
light.
that day.
It needs street safety.
Yeah.
It needs the crash support. It needs all the EPA bullshit. Like it's still gonna be heavy.
Like I assume they have some sort of like. I imagine these things have some sort of cage structure like built into them. Like
I would imagine.
I'm thinking GT3 RS. Like they come with cages, things like
but
that.
not
the
actually in the
GT
U.S.
Yeah, the GTD. I'm not sure if you can race it wheel to wheel. I think I can't remember what the licensing is, but.
Because the GT3s, like the Porsches, you can't legally get the cage in the U.S. You have to get it
the-
yourself and put it in. You can't.
I thought the
option it like
RSs.
that.
Oh,
you
really?
could option them as a cage.
Maybe I
don't know.
I thought there was like rules against that because it technically
it-
changes the crash safety.
Oh,
I could see that.
I could see that as well.
So you have to just get it yourself.
My optioning Porsches has not been up to date on
Yeah, I have
how
an option one
expensive
either.
can I make this Porsche?
I just have, dude, I have this core memory that just popped up because I remember on Drive Network, like over 10 years ago, like Mike Spinelli and I can't remember who else was on the episode. They did a whole episode just going on Porsche's website and absurdly optioning a Porsche, and like red seat belts were like $300. It just added up to tripling the price of the original base.
I did that in high school and it was so much fun.
Like,
Just
I
sit in
really
class
need
and like,
this.
let's see how much
you know?
like we can make this thing.
There used to be this website. It was called Net Car Showroom, I think it was, and it used to have everything. It was a well put together website. It had every car, every model, photos of it. I don't know if it's still around, but it was like the go-to website when I first kind of was learning about the internet. Yes, that was my go-to website on the internet, guys. Was Net Car Showroom.
I wonder if that's still a website.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up again because it also showed concept cars. The dreaded concept car.
Back to concept cars. The worst part about concept cars, we're getting teased about something freaking cool, and then we got like a potato. And they're like, yeah, it's
It's the same, we promise.
Remember the Supra concept?
the FT1.
Dude, FT1
Yeah,
was one of my
FT1. So dope.
favorite looking concepts ever. I
But
mean,
it was close enough where it didn't look like some concepts you see it and you're like, okay, well, like I don't know, it looks like a fish tank. I don't know what that is, but that looked close enough where it could have happened.
Yep. I will say though, the Mark V Supra manual especially grew on me quite a bit. And you know, if you do a nice lip kit and put a wing on it and like all this, it definitely cleans the car up a lot. But yeah, I got to see the FT1 in person, and that car is stunning. Cool. That thing's stunning. But then you realize, well, you know, they have to develop everything else around it, you know, and they have to shrink it and everything else. And it was funny. I remember when I went to the Supra launch event, which shout out to Toyota, you always treat me really nice. But they had the new Supra next to the previous GT86, you know, FRS. And I was like, oh wow, the Supra's really not that much bigger. You know, it was really close. The
They're
wheelbase
not
and
that
everything.
big of cars.
No, they're small.
Pretty tiny.
Yeah, they're low roof line, small windshield.
Yeah, people don't realize that they're actually like a small vehicle.
Yeah, there's one at what they call downforce battles at Linear. It's like an autocross gymkhana event where you go. I like it because normal autocross to me can be really boring, but downforce battles put you against someone. So it's the same course but mirrored.
It's like the X Games vibe.
Yeah,
right?
just
You see
like
the rally
that. It's
car thing.
but you both go at the same time and you race each other around the course. And it's really fun. But yeah, there was a Mark V out there doing really good. Really, really
Those
good.
engines can make a good amount
The
of power.
B58's a monster of an engine.
And then
I mean,
the
it's great.
S58 that came in like all the BMWs.
Yeah, is that the M2 competition and
that's
stuff
the
like
M2
that?
Comp one.
They
I
put
think
it in a bunch of different cars now. They put it
Yeah.
in their SUVs. They put it in a bunch of different stuff, which is rare for BMW.
Yeah, it's a solid engine.
They want to just, everything's unique.
Yeah.
They're kind of like honing in a little bit.
They're
here.
branching out. They're getting better.
Yeah, they're learning.
They're learning.
They're really getting better. It's nice.
Yeah, we speaking of unique build, I guess we drove. So the first day we went to New Smyrna to VMP Performance.
Oh, that was a cool car.
Yeah, and it downpoured for all day. Florida didn't do the Florida thing where it's like downpour, leave us alone. It was cold. It was like 35 degrees outside and rainy.
Not fun.
So we had to cancel 3 drives, and I shot 2. We shot I think you'll like this one. our buddy Jonathan has a Trailblazer with the inline 6 Atlas motor in it and boosted it. Yep. So it made 500 wheel and all wheel, 4x4.
Jonathan's been on the show.
Yeah, I love Jonathan, dude. He's a G.
Cool dude.
And we did that.
Cobra is really
We
nice.
drove
The
that
teal.
too. We drove it.
That car's really
I was gonna
nice.
get to that as
sorry.
well. No.
I blew the load on that.
That thing is dope.
The Trailblazer's cool too. It is. I like that.
Super
cool.
The Trailblazer was cool, and the fact that the Atlas motor, as of right now, at this moment, is still cheap.
Yes.
Explode in price after this podcast.
And then we drove. Since it was all-wheel drive, I don't advise this, but thankfully I have a lot of seat time and fast stuff. But don't do this, please. It was downpouring, and we did these 2 car reviews. The other one was a 700-wheel Explorer ST. It's pretty cool. Built trans, upgraded turbos. It was a 3-liter. I forgot they even made the 3.0 because I always think 3.5, right? I think Raptor and everything else, but it was fast. It back halved really hard. It ran mid-10s, I think.
Yeah, that's what
it ran like a 10.6 or something. That was cool. But then we backtracked to Jacksonville, and we went to Jack's Fab in Jacksonville. Super nice guys there. And they had a first-gen Toyota Soar with a Titan-built 1.5J, and it made 860. And it was probably arguably the best put together JDM car I've ever, imported JDM car I've ever felt. Every nut and bolt, every bushing, ECU master's dash, ECU's master's ECU. It just, dude, the thing ripped, dude. Yeah. It ripped.
And it didn't feel like it was trying to rattle itself to death and kill you, which made it
yeah, because a lot of the times you get a lot of polished turds from the importers, right? Because you'll get a respray, then you put it on a lift, and you're like, oh my God, it's rusted or destroyed or whatever.
If you follow those importers on Facebook, the photo that they show is usually a security camera photo.
I know.
It's wait, this is how you have to buy it? This is a rolled by.
Sight unseen,
and you've got a security camera footage of it.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, there are good importers out there, but I will say you're playing with fire a lot of times buying these old JDM cars. One of my friends bought a JDM Mark IV Supra and got scanned out of $35,000, right?
See,
and it's insane.
I can't get behind those imported Supras. I don't.
Right. Well, the USDM ones were better anyway.
But when I think about all the imported cars, we're getting the imported cars for a reason. Japan does not want those cars. If they did, they'd probably be keeping them. So we're getting the junked ones, the ship boxes, wrecks, whatever it is. We're getting the leftovers, and then they come to America, and people are shocked that they're oh, this is.
Well, there's
this is not a good car.
I have a conspiracy, I guess, of I think a lot of these
you need the hat?
YouTubers, I think a lot of these YouTubers out here, a lot of these bigger YouTubers own a bunch of these cars over in Japan. A lot of nice examples of them. And they're just waiting to import them all.
Oh,
that's fair.
Just cash out.
I think they already have a bunch of them.
I knew of, I'm not going to say who, but back when I lived in Virginia Beach, I was friends with lots and lots of military guys who were all stationed in Japan.
Yeah.
And a lot of them said that they buy a car and put it in a storage container, say, see you in 10 years, or see you in 15 years. And
that's kind of cool.
And a lot of them are finally, sweet. I can do it now.
R34s.
Yeah, R34s or whatever. And what else that day? Wide turbo BRZ, new gen. Cool. That was pretty fun. Made 320 wheel. Nice, simple car.
It'd be nice if you could import them and then register them in 25 years. So, I have it in my garage, but I can't drive it legally.
Right.
I get that. That makes sense. Then you can work on it. You can fix it up.
Yeah.
Why
restore
can't it be in the
here.
U.S.? And then I go to the DMV. It just doesn't make that much sense that it can't even.
It's a dumb rule. It's always been a dumb rule, in my opinion.
For
but
sure.
I understand that, they did the crash testing. I remember I used to know the history of the rule. The 25-year rule, I used to know it. And I think it was something to do with people going to Germany and buying a Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah, it was
and then
exactly
shipping
like
it
that.
over here. Because they could get it for so much cheaper over in Germany. And they didn't have to get around all the shipping and everything else.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. You would go buy the cars over there, ship them back, and then the American sects of BMW, Mercedes, whoever,
they were suffering
they're all
really
mad
bad.
that we don't have sales people are just getting cars from Europe. How do we fix this? Oh, let's have the government tell people you can't do this, and then they have to buy our cars.
Yeah, but that's the possible situation as far as I know.
Doesn't Mercedes offer you can go there and like drive your car at the factory first, and then
Porsche does it.
Porsche does
that.
for sure. I know that as a fact. So like, because the guy who let me drive his 918 first world problem, got it at the Porsche factory in Germany, then drove it straight to the Nürburgring, and then raced it, then shipped it back.
Was it silver?
It was black. Huh. Yeah, it was badass and black.
Interesting. Yeah, there's not that many black ones.
Yeah, no. I remember when I filmed it, which is like one of the freaking coolest film days of my life. I was like, God, this thing's so photogenic, and in black too. It just looks so good because you see all the silver ones, and I'm just like, you know.
I know. It's
silver
such like
is a basic color. It's just
for a car like that, it's so like
It's like an NPC car.
Literally NPC car.
It's just so special of a car to not to just be silver. Like, and even the yellow is kind of like a little like
Yeah, I love they did some cool colors on it, but yeah, the black really stuck out because the 918 had these really cool projector headlights where it's like a square. There's like 4 of them, and it really popped with the contrast. The silver, you can't even notice it, right? And yeah, I heard somebody say, you know what, I'll ask you first. Do you think that's a good-looking car, the 918?
Yeah.
Somebody the other day was like, that car is really ugly. I'm like, I don't know about that.
That's a hot.
I like
see
that.
people say that. I
don't know, man. That car's great looking.
Like,
it's aged really well.
I could see my wife
years.
saying that. Like, you know, she has like, she kind of knows ugly cars and not ugly in a different way than I do. So
or Carrera
she might
GT.
say that because she would probably say a Carrera GT is ugly. The wing is kind of stupid looking. If you, like it's just like these square ends on it. Like, I could see her saying that. Like, this is like
the most I've talked about supercars in like 10 years. Sorry, but
it's kind of fun to talk about the unattainable.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you.
Well, time.
I have a video coming out soon of a crashed Lexus LFA.
That was cool.
It was crazy because
that makes me sad.
Yeah. Well, here's the cool part: the insurance approved to fix it. It's very cool. But basically, short story is guy crashes it in the rain. He drives it all the time, which is super cool. Shout out to Chew. And he just hydroplaned, went off the road. And basically, I didn't know him personally yet. And somebody's like, hey, I know this viral LFA. Like, I know where it is. And I was like, can I just go see it? I'm just curious to see what the underpinnings of an LFA is. They're like, yeah, sure. So we go to his house, and I get to see like literally how it's built, you know, because it's destroyed, dude. I mean, like coolant lines are coming out, and because it's rear radiator. So the entire rear bumper's cut in half. Where the taillight is, taillight's gone, whole 9, dude. But yeah, kept him safe. They walked out, no problem. But the carbon fiber is so interesting because in that rear quarter, if you were to like push on it like this, it feels like steel. You know, it's so sturdy. Yeah. But then you go over to the weave where it's broken, you just be like, and just hit it. But that car, I think it went through 3 different iterations. I think they built one out of metal, and then one out of aluminum, and then they finally did carbon. But there's only 500 of them. So to fix it, you're actually probably saving your investment. You know, as crazy as that sounds, I mean, they're worth $1 million now, which is crazy.
How much were those off like
500, like right off
like
rip.
500 half mil
originally.
Yeah,
they were unwanted.
Yeah, and Lexus lost money on every single one of them.
Yeah,
it was basically
to, like, try to get people to buy.
People complained about I remember people were upset that it was the gearbox, like it was some single clutch gearbox, like I guess like the E-gears kind of thing.
So was the Aventador,
like a true manual and stuff, but like it's one of my favorite cars. Like that exhaust note is the best exhaust note of any car I've ever heard.
Yeah, well, speaking of the very signature tri-exhaust, it was weird seeing it just messed up.
Aww.
Like the whole thing was bent this way, and there's mud in the exhaust. It was just, it was a weird time. But
like the rotary exhaust.
Yes.
The RX-8 exhaust. Yeah.
The triangle, yeah. Yeah, the RX-8 did not have enough triangles on it.
That was
everywhere.
so
everywhere.
dumb. So
the
dumb.
shifter was a triangle. The shift knob was.
The e-brake was a little triangle.
Yep.
Like,
Oh, you're
handle.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it came up like this.
It was dumb. It was so dumb.
Those are some decisions that I'd love to talk to. Like,
An engineer.
How did this make it down to where everything became a triangle? Or did all these parts come together and then you were like, you guys also built triangles for the seats? Did everybody start bringing
the headrest, the logo, the rear bumper, the taillight, the key, like everything. And it's so funny because
even like the gauges had some.
The gauges did too. Yeah, as far as I remember. But dude, I had one friend in high school had one, and one friend in college had one. Both blew their motors up, but. Those cars are a travesty because they handle phenomenally. They drive so well. And yeah, they're not fast, but who cares? They drive so well. But I know, shout out to Ben Thorne from Gears and Gasoline. They just did a really long road trip at a barn find one, and he was burning coal the whole time.
Standard procedure.
But then freaking Ben Lynn, ballsy man, DSM road trip, lifted and blew his motor, not even on the first step. Timing belt shredded and destroyed everything.
Those guys are awesome. I don't watch as much as I'd like to, but I really appreciate
really well-made stuff. I've known them for 10 years. I know Ben Thorne for like 10 years. He emailed me asking for YouTube advice before he started.
Oh, wow.
So it's always a cool connection, you know.
You look back at
he's killing it now. It's great. And
you're like, shut up, kid, get out.
No, he sent me his like senior film project and said, do you like it? Mm-hmm. And I remember I took a long time to respond to it because I just got distracted because ADHD life.
Ignoring.
And and he emailed back, I think a little bit later. He's like, are you ignoring me? I was like, no, man. No. Because I thought he had a cool story. He had like a boosted ZX3X or whatever it was, the curvy Escort.
Oh,
you know what I mean? With the weird taillights and all that. It was I call it RX-7 Taurus era.
Yeah.
With the tails that went like that.
Yeah.
My dad had one of those. Trans went out on that.
So to touch on the T-Pain stuff a little bit.
Sure.
There's events going on that I don't.
Yeah.
I've seen them. They look cool. I don't know the whole backstory on that. You're connected with them.
Yeah. No, I unfortunately. So here's what's funny. I'll tell a little bit of the story. So Ricardo, shout out to Ricardo. He's like one of the main marketing guys of Nappy Boy Automotive. And he calls me, and I'm on a 3-way call with Ben Hobson, who's an incredible drifter, local to Atlanta as well. So we all hang out with each other a lot. And Ricardo goes, hey, David, we're going to throw an event. I know it's super short notice in about a month. What day are you free? And I give him a date. And I'm like, this is the date I'm free. And I double-checked my calendar. I was like, okay, this is the day. Let's do it this day. And he goes, great. I'll start working on it now. And then literally only an hour later, I realized I did not put one of our good friends' wedding on that in my calendar. It just went completely over my head.
Tough one to move.
Yeah. No, you don't. You just don't. You just don't. And so I call Ricardo back. He's like, dude, sorry, it's too late. Like, we already got the video. I was like, no. But no, I did thankfully have a little bit of involvement, and I say that with big quotation marks if the Nappy guys are listening. But yeah, Robert, who owns a shop called Auto Extremes, like incredible shop. They do like old hot rod work where they shape with metal and all that stuff. Yeah. Old school car guy. Ricardo would call and be like, hey man, like we have this comp. What do you think about the timing since you've done events? How much time do you think this would take? Or how much time do you think, this will take probably this long, add plus 15 for shit happens, and yeah, it was super fun to help him out. And then he just kind of took it from there. It was originally going to be a Valentine's Day event, like themed that way. And that's why they wanted to keep that date. And then they're like, we'll just do Drift Symphony instead. So, yeah, they brought out a whole bunch of great drivers. I mean, Vaughn came out, RTR came out, Chelsea Dodofa came out, Colette came out. Ben came. So many great drivers.
But like it seemed like the overall aesthetic of the whole event was pretty awesome as well.
Oh, great! Yeah, they had karaoke at the end of the night. Mm-hmm. They had a cool call out kind of thing to where you could tandem against like the bigger dogs.
Luke Fink was there.
Luke Fink, that guy can freaking drive, dude. Like he's this. Oh my god, Australian dude that can get at anything and murder like anything. I think he drove Svon's pro car as well.
Yeah, he drove everybody's
He drove everybody's car. But yeah, it was a cool event because these two big screens on the sides of the carport, I actually wanted to do for Cosmic because I did Cosmic Drift in October and I planned that whole thing by myself and that was a huge undertaking. I actually looked up how much those LED screens were to have a cool vibe, and it was way too much. Way too much. Big number. I was like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But it was cool to see them. It was cool to see that. The theming was great. And yeah, they had karaoke at night to like finish the night out, which is really cool.
What's the story on Cosmic then? Because that was another one I saw with the night lights and everything.
That was an idea I had about 2 years ago. Because when Caffeine Octane bought Linear Raceway, they asked me, hey, do you want to do your own event? I said, sure, that sounds awesome. And I ended up doing 3 in 2022, and I very much treated them as like practice for Cosmic Drift in the back of my mind. And the first one, it went well, but guess what? It was the coldest day of that time, and the wind chill was terrible and not a lot of drivers could come out. But it actually ended up being a blessing in disguise because on a much smaller scale, you could observe screw ups, right? So I'd be, like this doesn't work here. I could move things over here. Then guess what? July comes along and 100 drivers show up and it's great.
Yeah.
And then I did one more, I think October of 2022. And the way I had it formatted was open drifting, single file line or single rider line like a roller coaster, and then tandem drifting. And so you could just go whenever you wanted. There's not sessions or really anything. And then there was a halftime show where people could volunteer to play drift games, which is really fun. And then back to public drifting, night ends. I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, what would be like my dream event? And so for years and years and years, I've gone to this thing called the Electric Daisy Carnival. And it's a music festival out in Vegas. And every time I'm out there, it's at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, a track I've raced on. And it's funny, during a set, I'm watching a set, and I look down, and I'm standing on top of the rumble strips. And I'm like, wouldn't it be so freaking cool to like drive through this or race through this beautiful, cool, colorful environment? And then I looked it up, and EDC is like $300 million to set up the whole thing. I'm like, okay, how do I do this on a extreme tight budget?
How do I do it for $5,000?
Right, right, yeah. And so I pitched the idea. I go, look, I know this is a really hard thing to explain, but I promise you, like when it happens, you'll get it. So they said, okay. I said, all right. So I started planning it and realized that getting a lighting sponsor was almost impossible because you didn't have a proof of concept. Mm-hmm. You didn't have proof of what your vision was. And so everybody I approached, they all said no because it's not cheap to light the whole track.
Yeah.
Right. So the number one thing that was hardest to get was the oval light. So linear, for reference, is 3/8 of a mile. So just to get the wall was a nightmare. And so I was like, okay, how about I start with everything else? And so my main kind of, I guess you could say, James, my crown jewel of the event was the carport.
Yeah.
So when you're at Caffeine Octane Linear, you pull up, and when you're waiting in line to go out drifting or circuit, whatever you're doing, you go under this rooftop, this carport, and it's 70 feet long. I remember like all the measurements. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool to take the most boring part of racing here and make it something entertaining? And so I was like, what if I turned it into kind of like a Space Mountain-y kind of thing?
Rainbow
Road kind of stuff. And so then I did months of research of like, what's the most cost-effective way of doing this, and without it looking awful, right? And also, and I quote, looking Christmassy, right? How do I choose the right bulbs, choose the right LEDs, choose the right everything to where it's more RGB, like it's somebody's computer, if they built a PC or something, or their keyboard, and put it in this translation. And finally, through a lot of work, I kind of come up with this design, and then with input from yourself and some other friends, we figured out a really cool design. We blacklit the whole thing, and that really helped atmosphere. I know this is dragging on, but then I will get to the main part. So basically, I go to Primal Racing School, and what it is, it's at Atlanta Motorsports Park, and I'm in Radical SR1s. They're open cockpit, very fast, downforce car, Hayabusa powered, 11,000 RPM. And I do great. I get my racing license, and then they buy me a seat into the actual race in the Radical, and I win the race, which is amazing. First time out wheel-to-wheel racing. So they take me out to dinner and tell me everything I did wrong, which is great. Like my coaches are like, hey man, you did great, but here's what you can improve on, which is what a coach is for.
Yep.
And, we're at this like sushi place, and they go, so like, what else is going on in your life? And I'm like, dude, I'm like stressed about this event. Like, I don't know what to do. I can't get this stupid oval light. I don't know. They go, that sounds really cool. How can we help? They go, well, I know a guy. And there's this brand that just launched. It was called Mega Racer, and they did automotive lighting, and they did automotive just accessories like interior pieces, stuff like that. And I'm like, you think they'll help? And he goes, I can ask him. So we get in a Zoom call, and I said, here's my idea. And I had the most organized notes I could ever think of to be like, this is it. Like, these people got to help me or I'm kind of screwed. And they said, yeah, let's do it. So they sent me 4 samples of rope light, and rope light's the good stuff. It's that outdoor, expensive light. And they sent me 5 samples. I said, this one. I said, okay. So they sent me, how long was it? I think it was 2,300 feet. It
was long.
2,300 feet of LED.
Sounds heavy.
It was very heavy.
Sounds like a lot.
Not light.
No.
Not light at all.
So,
a lot to deal with.
So we scored that. And then I went into Adobe After Effects. I created that Dude in Blue like concert visuals. We got a big, giant, like massive drive-in movie screen, hooked it up to a sound system. We also had another LED screen to a sound system, so it gave these concert vibes, and kind of gave it a little bit of festival vibes as well. And it was just a cool place to be, right? That was my whole thing, is I'm trying to make a memory and not just a racing event. And everybody had such a good time. Yeah. It was such a fun time.
All the content I saw from it looked
It was
awesome.
really cool.
It very stands out of like the...
Yeah, how do you stick out? And I remember we were actually, my friend Austin, shout out to Austin, he has an E46 drift car, and I convinced him to do the LED dune buggy whips on his car, so that way when he drifts, the smoke illuminates. And I'm looking here, and I found these giant RGB LED inflatable archways, and they're the most expensive thing. And I go to everybody in the garage working on the car. I go, is this worth it? They go, yes. I go, would you drift under this? They go, yes. I go, okay. And it ended up being probably one of the coolest visual things. As soon as you left, you went under this colorful archway, and then you went under another one. Created like this cool tunnel effect. Went out, came around, and then you could go under another one, and then you would exit through. And then, those, a lot of like streamers use them, those tube lights.
Yep.
So I got, I can't remember how many. I had like 30 to 40 of those tube lights.
Mosquito in here.
We'll get them. But we had those all around the track as clipping points. So as visual reference for the drivers. And at the very end, which was cool, they had a bunch of different settings in them. And we had, at the very end, we had about 10 of them in the exit, and they'd flash red and white, like, stop. Because a big issue there is at Lanier, it's really tempting to drift out into the pit. Because it creates this really cool...
It's flowy in and out
It's super flowy, and it feels like you can go up and over the hill, and you could hit somebody.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, very long-winded story, but Cosmic, it was a dream event, and it worked. It was awesome. I'm super happy about it. And Payne literally promised he would be there. And 2 days before, Ricardo or somebody goes, hey man, I don't think Ping is going to be able to come. I go, well, yeah, what's up? And he goes, well, he just got a last-minute concert gig in downtown Atlanta for this music festival, and they refused to move his set time. He originally was supposed to be in the afternoon. Well, then they moved him like further into the day.
Yeah, they moved him in the like evening, I think.
So this man did not break his promise. He went, did the set, immediately bolted, and drove all the way to the track, got in his drift car, and then straight onto the track and drifted.
He's such a good dude.
Legend, dude. I mean, and that makes me really root for these events, right? Because he's about it. He means well, and so does Hurt. Hurt obviously has incredible credibility from Hoonigan and everything else, and it's just really cool to see like the Southeast track scene just thrive right now. It's incredible.
Been cool. The one thing I liked about like I know we were talking about Gridlife earlier. Do you know much about Gridlife? Do you know what Gridlife is?
I know people camp there, and I know it's a track.
Okay.
And people do drifting and racing on it.
Yeah.
So
sometimes at the same time.
Gist of it, yeah.
Think of Forza Horizon. That like the whole it was
the closest you could do in real life legally.
It was like the music festival / car event, and that's what Gridlife always is. So they have festivals where it's a whole full weekend of basically drifting and road racing and time attack all during the day. And then at night, at around 8, it turns into just a music festival. And they have a bunch of different artists that come.
Big headliners, too.
Big headliners.
Big headliners.
There's arcade setup and stuff kind of throughout this whole just racetrack. So you can go see music acts at one of the stages. They have karaoke stuff going on. They got a little arcade going on. There's a bunch of vendors. And there's just nonstop things to do at the track for the entire weekend. Because normally at most race weekends, I mean, you've been to plenty of them, not much happens at night aside from teams generally just drinking with themselves, hanging out and fixing broken stuff. But there's not really much for spectator people to actually
recreational stuff to do.
You just end up leaving.
And that's why the camping, I guess, is such a big
it helps it a
level
lot
of that, because you kind of have to camp there.
It creates a lot of commodity too, or community, excuse me.
Yeah,
Gridlife South at Road Atlanta was really cool.
Yeah, it was a good time.
It's not. Are they coming back?
No.
Okay, what's the story with that?
So what I know, Michelin bought Road Atlanta.
Yep.
And Michelin does not want a bunch of degenerates at their racetrack, aside from Formula Drift, because I guess they give enough money to Michelin to where they will ignore the degeneracy for a weekend.
It's interesting because Michelin's not in FD at all either.
No.
But the thing is that the amount of outrage of FD to not go to Atlanta, I mean, that's the home of American drifting.
Yeah.
It was the first ever FD event was at Road Atlanta.
That's my favorite track that they do.
Oh, it's so good.
The keyhole
so good. The keyhole's paved just
for that event.
Yeah.
And Road Atlanta used to be owned by NASCAR.
They've been owned by everybody.
At least at one point. I don't know
Panos owned them at one point.
With
as far
FD.
But
yeah, so that's all Gridlife. But now they do it at kind of just throughout tracks around the country. The closest one here would be CMP, Carolina Motorsports Park. It's outside of Columbia, South Carolina. But yeah, that's where they go and basically just travel all around the country. They do events in California,
Colorado now too.
Colorado and Michigan, and Connecticut at Lime Rock, and Jersey. I think this year I'm going to run CMP. We'll run Lime Rock Park. We'll run their Midwest Festival, which is in South Haven, Michigan.
Do you win anything, or is it just...
So there's, for the comp classes for Time Attack and GLTC, there's prizes. Yeah. There's things like that. Drifting, it's literally just a party. It's just have fun.
Just for fun.
Have fun with your homies and chill. But for the actual comp part of it, there is winnings, there's points, all of it matters kind of thing. Yeah. So just like any other motorsport.
It's always seemed kind of interesting and fun. I've just never really ventured into that level of motorsports. I usually stick to drag racing, and that's kind of what I try to stick to.
Oh, I get that. It's definitely
I'm a simple man.
Simple man. I've always wanted to. I've never really been around drag racing, which is weird for me. So it's cool to see this stuff Whitaker's car. That was the first proper drag car I've ever been in my life.
We're gonna talk about that. That's right.
And that was really cool. So like I'd like to get around drag racing more, and definitely like if you want to just have like one fun weekend and explore something, going to Gridlife is a blast.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those events that I'd like to eventually try. I don't know how much I would like it, but because I don't like music festivals or musicians, but
that's the end of the night, though.
I would avoid that for sure.
The
There's plenty of other
majority,
stuff to do.
Yeah, I would
the
avoid
majority
that
of the event is racing.
Yeah, it's
I
a
mean,
lot of
it's
racing.
all day,
Like
all day.
7
man.
a.m. to like 7 p.m. kind of racing.
Road Atlanta is a tough one to spectate in itself too, right? Because
You got 2 good spots.
depends.
Yeah,
There's-
2 and 3.
well,
like you go to Lime Rock and you can see the whole thing.
Yeah, so Road Atlanta, there's a lot of great spots to spectate Road Atlanta. The problem is Road Atlanta is so damn big. So
Yeah.
you need like a dirt bike or a golf cart, or you're just gonna
or
be
you're walking a lot.
all day.
I think
every day.
Gridlife South and like whatever the last year was. My phone said I did like 30,000 steps or something.
A lot of walking.
SEMA steps. That's what I call it. Yeah.
But like, yeah, Lime Rock, much smaller track, and like Lime Rock is essentially like a big hill, and then the track's around it, so you can pretty much stand kind of wherever and see the track. Road Atlanta is just a massive hill throughout the whole place, and like you're basically stuck to whatever you're looking at. You can't really see much depending
Yeah.
on where you're at on the track.
That's like the kind of like a mini Nürburgring in a way, where like you see one turn at a
You-
time,
Yeah, exactly.
and then you wait like
And then someone else comes by.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's always the argument of like Formula One. You're much better off just watching it on TV if you want to see the race. Unless you want to go for the atmosphere. It's an atmosphere thing.
I go for the vibes. I would
Go
love
for
to
the vibes, dude. The vibes.
The vibes of F1. Did you see that the movie that recently came out? What was that called? The Nissan racing movie.
Oh, Gran Turismo.
Gran Turismo.
Yeah, you made a
I
video on
watched
that.
it. Yeah.
That was a good movie. I like that movie.
Yeah, no, it honestly it did the best it probably could.
There's been few car movies, so that's like kind of like the one.
It was
that-
nice to see another car movie.
Yeah.
You know, I just did a review of the new Ferrari movie, and yeah, the video's not doing good, and I don't blame anyone. But the
movie was also not
it
good.
was rough, dude. It was rough. I mean, Adam Driver, who plays Ferrari, like Adam Driver's an amazing actor, and
Yeah.
he does his best. The actors all do a good job, but the movie, 1, is so depressing, the whole movie, and 2, the crash scenes make you laugh. These tragic historical events are done so badly that you laugh. Like, okay, first example. The first crash in the movie happens not even an hour in, and it takes you out of the whole movie. So they're at the test track, Ferrari's test track, and this is 1957. So super dangerous time for racing, obviously. And
like 80% of the drivers.
they're all
They all-
dying,
they all
right?
die.
So they're testing a new car out. He's trying to break the track record. Driver comes around, and then it cuts to the gearbox in the H pattern, and he's like stuck, like something's gone wrong. And I think it's implied that he's going really fast. And then the way they edit it, they cut it to in front of the car, then back to the driver's face, then under the car, and then shows his wheels turned like this, like all the way full lock, and him just skirting like this, which then gives the impression that he's slowed down in time. Then he hits a curb, and then it cuts to a wide shot of him straight up in the air. Like all the way like this. And you start laughing.
Just comically bad.
Like, here,
scenes.
I gotta just show
Okay,
you.
let's
Just
see this.
comically bad.
Like,
Yeah.
it is so comically bad.
The only real good car movie that stands out to me is Ford vs Ferrari. I feel
That
like
movie
that's-
is fantastic.
I liked
yeah.
Ford vs Ferrari.
I can always watch that one wherever it kind of starts.
That's a
like,
plane movie,
yeah.
too.
You
just
can
watch
just
it
sit
on the
down and
airplane.
watch wherever, and it's enjoyable.
The other one for me was Rush.
Rush was good, too.
That was
I
another
like Rush
one.
a lot.
Did you ever see Rush?
I don't know if I've.
It had
They didn't advertise it well.
No.
Came out in 2013.
it had Chris Hemsworth in it. He played.
I've seen it on Netflix, but I never
Yeah.
watched it.
So
Niki Lauda
that's
versus
a
James
good,
Hunt.
good one to watch. Yeah, it's Niki Lauda versus James Hunt, and they did a really good job at portraying that story.
And they picked
doing it
the
well.
right. They casted it perfectly. Like Ferrari was not cast well. He looks nothing like Enzo, like zero. So it
Adam
just takes,
Driver does?
he looks
Yeah.
nothing like him. Ford versus Ferraris looked
Yeah,
amazing.
they do.
He looked spot on.
They did
dude.
really good in that movie. Like the tension that they build with Ford CEO and
Yeah.
everything. Is
with
like
Henry
very
Ford
good.
II. Yeah,
And then that what was his name? BB something. what was the marketing dude's name or the VP that kept like trying to derail?
I know who you're talking
process?
about. I just can't top of my because
Leo
Lee
something.
Iacocca is the good guy in the movie pretty much.
Yeah.
And he came up with the Mustang for the most part. He had a big part of the Mustang.
Yeah.
But the Nissan movie, what was it called? Gran
Turismo.
It just felt a little too cheesy.
So
Like,
here's what's
I guess
funny.
when you base it
I
around
interrupt
video
you. I'm
games,
sorry. Go ahead.
it's fine. I guess when you base it around video games, it's gonna naturally be cheesy. But it
Yeah.
just had
Yeah.
this like underlying like when you zoom out a little bit, you're like, kind
Yeah.
of was a little stupid, and like it had like kind of a generic storyline almost. I know it's based on a real story, but
Yeah.
like the storyline was very generic, like the poorer kid and the richer kid.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of the simple
whole
one.
like the whole plot of that thing was pretty wild. Just like when we backtrack to Nissan's like, hey, let's take a bunch of kids that play video games and put the best ones in race cars.
Yeah.
And like
Yep.
people are like, this is a great idea.
So just hit play.
Oh, you had it.
Wait.
Oh my god. Why was he flying like that? It looks like small scale. Oh my gosh. The way that he's like
And it
flying
takes you
through the air.
completely out of the movie.
I gotta see this.
Have you not seen this one?
No, I
The way
haven't
that-
Go all the way back.
I haven't watched the movie. I should.
The way that he's just kind of like limp through the air.
Oh,
you're
it's
just
so
like,
bad, dude.
is
It's
so
so
funny.
bad.
Did
I
this
mean,
thing like just come out
yeah,
and you've got it on
in
Prime
December.
already?
It's so bad. It's just like a dummy, just like in the air.
This clip is the only reason why I decided to make a video on this movie. And I was just like, this is
Oh my
absurd.
god.
That's one of many that's that bad.
It's such a shame that
Because there's so many
movies,
better Enzo stories than this one. But so Gran Turismo, Amelia invited me to an early screening. She got me tickets to an early screening in Atlanta. And so I went, and for some reason, my name was not on the list. And I felt like such a, I don't know what the word is, like loser. Like, let me in. I want to see the movie. And they're like, you're not on the list. I'm like, I know I'm on the list. And the security guard goes, hold up. I go, hi, what's up, man? He goes, are you David? I'm like, yes, I am David. The one time I'm going to pull this card of my whole career. And he goes, man, you come in. And everyone who's like officially running the whole database is like, no, he can't go in. He's like, yes, he can. And then literally dragged me in there, sat me down. He goes, enjoy.
Was there that many people trying to get in?
Yeah, it was full. Movie
Wow.
theater was
like
full.
there was like people trying to fake like I'm allowed to be in there.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was
a
full.
hyped movie.
I
Super
had
hyped
to.
movie.
I watched it on the front row. That was the last seat. So I go in there, and I think what was fascinating was you could tell they kind of brought like all walks of life to watch it. And yeah, people were yelling and screaming and loving it and cheering. And I was like, okay, all right. The problem with me is that I know the real life story already because I followed it pretty closely when it happened. Because they kind of portray it that Jan is the first ever winner. He was I think the second winner.
they did it a handful of
The
times.
timeline
before
is
that.
all out of whack. Because like he's on like Instagram stories and that stuff didn't even exist back then.
Yeah, that was
you know?
back in what?
11, I think,
Yeah.
2011. He's a very good driver. That's
yeah.
not the issue.
Super talented guy.
But yeah, it's funny that actor Jan stunt driver was the real Jan,
Yeah.
which is really cool.
Oh, that is cool.
That's cool.
But no, the story was portrayed pretty well. I did kind of like it's cheesy to most people, but I kind of liked the whole like PlayStation like numbers over the
Yeah.
cars and stuff. It did make it stick out, and most of the driving's real, which is nice. But yeah, it's funny. It's very much a condensed version.
Yeah.
Of everything. I was actually, I mean, you kind of can't not talk about it, but I could have sworn they were not going to put the Nürburgring crash in it because it was
I had
horrible.
a feeling that was going to be in there.
It was horrible.
'Cause it was a
I mean,
big
he
deal.
killed someone.
Yeah, somebody actually died.
Yeah, and he got so much flack for it because if it was any other race car driver in the world, they'd be like, "That's racing."
It would've- yeah,
but
it
since
would've
it was
been a
the
racing
video
incident.
game kid, they put it all on him, and it's like, damn,
Yeah.
that sucks. And if you watch the real footage, you're like, "There's nothing he could have done.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
yeah.
just like he was just going fast and the car took flight.
You just lift it a little bit, and the whole bottom of those cars are flat fours, and it's just a big old sail.
Yeah, that's a tough situation. I mean, those guys are very close on the Nürburgring. On
That track
area,
is no joke,
and that's a
dude.
spot where cars fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, is
not
that why the
people
speed
know
limit
it.
was put down on the Nürburgring in some sections?
Oh, are we talking like for like normal people?
yeah,
Yeah, probably.
yeah. No. I remember. I think even racing. I think they put a speed limit on at one point.
I haven't
but
heard that.
I must be getting confused with something because the 919 obviously did not have a speed limit.
No, yeah, like I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like everybody just like all the drivers recognize that there's danger there.
That's
and
freaking
you
the
just
coolest
risk it.
race car though. So the Porsche 919, it's basically
They're hyper.
yeah. So
LMP1
basically, yeah, Porsche was like, can we just build the absolute fastest thing with no rules, like unlimited? Don't have to worry about homologation, and they did something absurd, like a low 6 or 5
some
minute
fast
time
time.
or
I don't know
something.
what it was.
Yeah, that probably won't ever be broken, at least in the next 10
car. At
years.
some point, it will be.
It will, but right now
We're spreading so much misinformation.
Yes, we are.
They could be running like a 7 or something, and we'd be like,
No,
oh, whatever it is.
I'm looking it up right now.
I
Thank
like
you.
spreading misinformation. It's actually my favorite thing to do.
It's fun. You create a little bit of controversy.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter, on X. I spread misinformation daily.
You never know who to believe anymore. Like, who's right?
No, you know who to believe. It's me. I wholeheartedly will tell you.
519.
Oh, hell yeah.
519 on the
fast.
Nürburgring.
That
Holy
is
cow.
fast.
That's what I mean. Dude.
I mean, what is a Z06, like a C7
Not
Z06
even
do? Like
close.
8, like just comparatively, you know? Like,
Yeah,
what is
what?
it, like 750? Like, what's like a,
It did.
Were they like 8? Or were they sub 8?
or like a C7 ZR1? Those were fast.
Sorry, I'm hunting it down right now.
Those ZR1s were spicy.
Dave is our encyclopedia of knowledge. Fun fact. He just has, like, we've been on this road trip for a long time, and I just learned very random facts throughout the day, and it's a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
it's great.
He's been in a lot of cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
even
no,
just cars, just
I'm a
random
huge
stuff.
history nerd too. So like, oh man, if I was not a car channel, I'd be a history channel probably by a lot.
Well, people that follow this podcast know, like, when I'm talking to people and they start telling me a story, I always have to ask them what year, because it's important to me, because, like, you know, you have connections of things to know what year they're talking about,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking to somebody older where they're like, oh, it's like, you know,
713.
90s, it's important.
713
Did a
is
713.
what ZR01 does.
That's
Still very
That's
fast.
fast.
big difference.
Yeah.
Minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not seconds. Those are minutes.
What is? Oh God, we're going down the rabbit hole now.
Well, that's why we're here. That's the whole point of this.
Yeah, we got plenty of time.
Thankfully, you know, the overlords at Google know when you're looking it up. Wow, the GT3, the 911 GT3
It's in
does
sixes,
a
right?
655. Okay, we're done. Let's
Speaking
put it
of
away.
fast, what is your fastest, like, quarter mile time?
I've been 768 at one. It went 181, but the 768 was only at 168.
That's moving.
because I was
Lord.
already out of the gas, trying not to go too
Not
fast.
die? Oh.
No, not to go too fast. The breakout was like a
Oh, okay.
766, and I was trying not to break out
Okay.
in that. But it probably would have been like maybe like a 760.
That's wild.
It's the best feeling.
I can't imagine
feeling
being
ever.
like Brett doing 630s like every track. It's insane, dude.
Does not make sense. Well, tally that on the La Sala reference.
Sorry.
No, it's
It had to
good.
come once. Yeah.
There's one every episode.
You're like,
Well, I think everyone's just so blown away. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter what motorsport you're in.
Yeah.
He came up one way or another on your Facebook
Yeah.
feed, and you're just like, what?
Yep.
His car's in my garage. It makes me feel cool. You know, his other car.
Oh, the Falcon?
Yeah.
That thing's dope.
Yeah, it's a
dude.
really cool
Super
Falcon.
cool.
But yeah, it's sitting in the garage right now. It makes me feel faster.
There you
Just
go.
having it here.
Just touch it. Like, I will be faster.
Just being near it.
Yeah.
You know, it'll rub off eventually.
Exactly.
It has to.
That's
Like,
how this works.
by law. Those Coyotes are just so stupid. A stock block Coyote making 3,000 horsepower shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
It just shouldn't. Like, it doesn't. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We talked about it a lot last time I was here, but it's just interesting how the tone is finally changing in a lot of ways. Because when I had Smurf, or I still have Smurf, but like when I was being a young and dumb street racer with only like 430 wheel, Like, I just remember everybody assumed they were going to race a 2-valve. Like, they always assumed they were racing the old Mustang or even the old engine. I guess it's better to say the old engine. But yeah, I just was like, yo, this is a new day. Because I remember the first time we dynoed a boosted one, and this was just like a Vortec E85. This is like 2012. Yeah, it did 727 on 85, and that you couldn't dream of that with the other cars, you know? And so I was like, oh, potential's there. It's just going to take a long time for people to understand it. But I think it being in a Mustang, you know, a lot of people are like, oh. But no, it's cool to be in a truck, right? It's like, oh, the trucks.
Oh, the trucks are the hot thing right now. Everybody wants a all-wheel drive.
Race trucks are cool. They'll always be cool.
Yeah, like a shop truck, race truck, they are cool. But those Coyote trucks are a real hot button right now. Everybody wants those things. They have, but it's also necessity because GM stopped making two-door short beds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they classic GM, does something stupid.
Yeah. We did one really cool. It was like obviously back with work when I still worked at National Speedway. I was on the tail end of me being there. Some dude ended up, like, we made him a two-door short bed, like, new truck. Because he's like, I want this. And we're like, cool, we can do it. And he's like, how much? And we gave him the number. He's like, cool. It's like, I want it. And he's like, make it fast. And we're like, okay. He's like, I want a race truck. I'm like, all right, sweet. You'll get a race truck.
It's possible. I mean, just think about how many Dodge would sell if they did a TRX two-door short bed.
That would be sick.
They would fly off the shelves.
Oh, yeah.
They would sell a ton of those things.
They'd probably make the argument, well, the Gladiator didn't sell that well. It's like, well, it's a Jeep.
Well, it's no one cares about the Gladiator.
Nobody cares about the Gladiator.
You get a bad Jeep and a bad truck at the same time. Like, that's what you get with the Gladiator.
And then I'll tell everyone, like, making them 6x6 doesn't make them better or more desirable. Yeah. It actually makes me like it a lot less.
Yep.
Adding more weight that Jeep already can't sustain.
Because some people would Hellcat swap those and stuff, and I'm just like, man,
that's a nightmare. Trying to do any of those like V8 swaps on those Jeeps because nothing fits. Shocking, because it wasn't meant to fit. Yeah. And then
I would never do a Hellcat red eye swap. It's something that never was supposed to happen.
At least the thing that you swapped it into had not yours, but it had the ability to have a V8 in it.
True. Yeah.
Unlike the Jeep, where it's just like, all right, V6 engine bay, this is all you get. There's no other option.
Well, every year Dodge reaches out to a bunch of YouTubers and they're like, yeah, hey, we want you guys to swap some stuff.
I can neither confirm nor deny this awful experience.
Worst part of Dave's life.
No, quite literally, it ruined me.
Like, I mean, all these YouTubers, like anybody that watches YouTube avidly knows that, you know, Throttle did one in, what was it, like a Viper?
Yep.
Yeah, they did a Viper. Rob Dom
Weston
did one.
Like everybody.
Dave did one.
And people, they had to be in a Dodge, I guess, was the rules.
I can tell you every rule, and it was a nightmare. But
yeah, and
number one
Wrench Every Day. Is it still Wrench Every Day? No, he changed the name of it. Sorry, Jared. I can't think of the name of your channel.
It's
Dave knows.
I can't think of it off the. Sorry.
He's a great dude.
Jared Pink.
Jared Pink is an awesome guy. I just can't
think of the name of the channel.
I'm tired. I'll make that excuse. No, he's really great. Jared's great. I like him a lot.
Yeah, he's a really good mechanic. Like, one of the better YouTube mechanics.
Oh,
he's not just a hack like me. He's an actual
I wish I was a talented mechanic.
Dude, yeah. But yeah, that was easily the most stressful financially and timeline thing I've ever done. Yeah. I lived in a hotel for 24 nights in like Groundhog Day.
Holy cow.
I remember talking to you throughout some of that, and you were just sad.
I lost basically my life savings doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the thought of, like, were you like, this is going to be that good for content that it's worth doing? Or was it like such an allure that like, oh, Dodge wants to give me something? Because I feel like there's a shiny, like, oh, they want to give me something, I'm going to
carrot and a stick.
It was shiny object syndrome. You know, I mean, to be fair, I do take a lot of the blame because I should have expected things to go wrong. But I will say, oh, God, I'm getting so like, you know. Essentially, I was told I was going to get a full-blown crate engine with a T56 Magnum. and that I was going to get to keep the car. That was like, oh, so I get to keep the car.
Yeah, great. You're building a car.
Right.
That is yours.
And
you can take home and do whatever you want
budget
with.
was $10K, which is not enough to build the car. But I was like, well, I get to keep the car. That was kind of like the caveat. Like, if I have to spend some money, all right, I get to keep a car. Hellcat, red eye.
Magnum, right?
Magnum, yeah.
Super dope.
And
Magnum, dude.
yeah, and
those were cool even when they
They
came out.
were so sick.
yeah. But basically, just a whole bunch of miscommunication down the road. I thought I was going to get the motor within a month. The contract, I think they pitched me the idea, I think March or April of 2022, and I didn't get the motor till July 17th of 2022 or something like that.
So no one kept those cars?
Oh, everyone else sold theirs, I think. I'm the only one who kept theirs because I'm just like, I need my time
But you
with
did
this
get
car.
to keep the car.
Yeah. But moral of the story is I think they might have sent out the motor earlier. I just did. I think it got sent in July. There we go. But when we opened it, no accessories. No alternator, no starter, no belts, no heat exchanger, no radiator, no clutch, no flywheel. The ECU was wrong. They sent me the wrong ECU 3 times. It was just unbelievable. I mean, I cannot express. And then next thing you know, you're spending tens of thousands of dollars trying to make something work.
On a car that you kind of didn't exactly, that wasn't like your dream car.
No, it was
Hellcat
yeah,
Magnum.
yeah. I thought it was just a neat idea, right?
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't going to win the race because I was going against people who had much bigger budgets than I did. And I just was like, what can I just make something cool, and enjoy it and drive it on the street. Mine was definitely probably the most streetable out of all of them. It had full interior still, all that. So I went for the cool factor. It didn't pay off. And I essentially, with only 2 days left, that's when we realized the ECU was wrong. It was a normal Hellcat ECU. And
There's a difference.
yeah, MAF versus MAP. I think one of the two. I can't remember which motor has which, but yeah, MAF versus MAP. And it just couldn't read. It's like, there's no car here. So yeah, it was really stressful. Basically most of the time, I think the first 12 or 13 days was me trying to find an alternator, a starter, and some belts. And I just couldn't find any. They're nowhere in the country. And thankfully, my friend Ross, who worked for Stellantis at the time, he helped me a lot, just giving me advice. And, the dealership that I was assigned that was supposed to know that this was going on, didn't know that this was going on. So I go in there and they're like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, are you kidding me? So it was just gnarly. Like, it was so gnarly. I mean, so just to get the motor bolted into the car cost $7,000. Then after that, so think of this: it was subframes, Hellcat subframes, brakes,
Axles, drive shaft.
It was the only way to expedite that process. Then to find the alternator, everything else, lots of overnight shipping from places that claimed to have parts, but they really didn't, right? And then the aftermarket was really rough. It's nothing like Chevy and Ford. Chevy and Ford, you could build these cars in 3 days, right? The idea is super cool, right? It's a super cool idea. But yeah, it was the most financially damaging thing I've ever done. And it was so stressful because finally there's 2 days left, 1 day left. 1 day's left. We go out for a drive. My internal safe cylinder fails. Reliable truck is coming. And I come to find out that $10,000 was also for transport and hotel. So did nothing, right? It's gone. And I was emailing people back and forth who were in charge of the event. I'm like, listen, I need a radiator. I need this stuff, something. Please. They're like, you have everything you need. I'm like, no, I don't. Please help me out, please. And I was getting to the point where it's like, I'll buy it. Just aim me in the right direction. And there's like,
Did other people get better help? Did they get more engine parts?
So everyone lost money. I do know that. I think I got the worst of it, to be honest.
I'm sure everybody lost money on that.
But so here's an example. I would have a sponsor who was going to do the fuel system. Well, then they were out of stock because they sponsored all the other YouTubers. So then I'm screwed. So then I had to buy a $2,000 fuel system, right? And it just goes on and on and on. Like I saw my bank account just draining every single day. And I would just, oh my God, I'd walk into the shop at 6 a.m. every morning, go to the toolbox, open the laptop, and just hunt all day long for parts. Nothing would ever show up, so I have to double order again. And I remember with only a week left, I drove that Infomoto Viper, and the guy was super cool. And he was like, hey, by the way, like, I run a Dodge dealership. I'm like, oh my God. And he got me those parts I needed in a day. You know?
There you go.
But we fixed the slave cylinder, thank God. Got onto a reliable truck, shipped it to Detroit. I flew to Detroit. No one was even there to pick me up, bro. Like, just something. Give me something. Get there. And we get there at like 7 a.m. And they're like, hey, we're going to do your interview. I go, great, let's do the interview. They're like, no, this is the rehearsal to the interview. I'm like, what? So we're standing around for like 2 hours to do the interview, finally do the interview. And they never, no one except the guy who did my interview was fantastic. I liked him a lot. Everybody else who did the announcement, the live stream, my other interviews, no one got my name right. Not a single person.
Nice.
Dave Peterson, that guy in blue, that man in blue, that bro in purple, who knows? And I get out there and, you know, I'm seeing these cars, dude, like who I'm up against. These are like $100,000 builds. I'm like, all right, at least I had the idea. Couldn't even get drag slicks for the event because they were out. Like, it was that bad. And so I'm on street tires. I'm on a bigger tire. We're just trying to make it work here, right? And we get out there. We go to practice.
Sounds like fun.
We get to practice.
So much fun.
I win all my races in practice, which was cool. But then it's time for eliminations. I go into eliminations, and my clutch blows up on the line after all that, dude. And it was so funny because, you know, I am limping the car down the street, and I turn around. I limp it back in. You just hear it all worn out, right? And I took my helmet off. There's one raw video clip that's in the video, the final video of my face. Just so over it. Like, as over it as possible. And my buddy Justin from Off the Line Performance, they are the people who were absolute saints. They helped me build the car. They were patient with me. They were morally supportive. Like, I get emotional thinking about it because they like legitimately got me through the whole situation. And they pull me out of the car. And have you been on Woodward Avenue before in Detroit?
No.
It's really cool. Like, so they have the Woodward Dream Cruise. It's the same time. And they go, David, don't worry about it. We're going to go to Woodward. We're going to go hang out with cool people.
Yeah.
Screw this car. Don't worry about it. We'll make it better later. Let's just go.
It's fine.
And they take the car, they push it onto the reliable truck, and they go, do you want us to deliver it to Atlanta or Iowa? We go, Iowa, like back to Off the Line so we can fix it. And we go to Woodward. We have a really good time. We hang out with a bunch of cool people. And it just sucked because the entire like idea was to race at Roadkill and then drive it on Woodward. That would have been dope, right? And then it broke. And then
Did you have to use a T56?
yeah.
That was the rule.
The
like
word-
a Turbo 400 in it.
Yeah.
Automatic and call
I
it
think
a day.
So
Someone had a
two
Turbo 400.
people, as far as I know, got sponsored with TH400s,
That's what I would've
and
done.
well, then they had to redact the sponsorship because the part of the rule because somebody in the higher ups didn't know what a Turbo 400 was, so they got around it.
Corporate America.
Yeah, and then they had to pull those out and put the Tremec back in. The other thing was. Oh my God, there's so much. I probably even shouldn't say any of this crap, but here I am. I don't care anymore.
I would have promptly, if they reached out to me, I would have promptly said no.
Well,
That's
so
smart idea.
Zero hesitation before anybody.
So there was another thing I'm trying to remember, but
Nothing comes free, right?
no,
they say.
no.
No such thing as a free lunch.
But it's one of those situations where I was like, oh my God, like they didn't get my name right. You know, that's how it felt. It was like after all that, like, because you're sold like this is a great opportunity, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh my God. I know Freddie Tavares had a real hard time. Everybody had a really hard time.
Dom did.
Dom had a worse time than me, I think, next year.
Rob
Dom.
Oh, Rob.
Shout out to Rob.
Dom. Yeah.
But no, it's just
people get lured in, and like
It's
those
a big
guys don't
shiny
need
thing.
to do that though.
And it
like,
sounds smart.
Tavares doesn't need to mess with that. To lure Tavares in seems like a lot.
Freddie did the first year of it where they gave you a car.
Yeah.
And you just did like bolt-ons, and then you came and raced each other.
That seems like a way better way to do this.
And then you had like, I think you could either buy the car back or you just gave it back to Dodge.
No, what Freddie was telling us was all they wanted back was a chassis.
That's
and
right.
a VIN
And they
number.
stripped the
So
whole
Freddie
thing.
just took the drivetrain out of it, cut the fender flares off the car, and basically he had like a V6, like 2016 V6 Charger, and he just swapped everything over, and basically he showed us a picture, and it was legit.
It was laughable.
A bare, just like chassis.
Metal chassis.
Like no doors, no nothing. Like I don't even think the subframes were in there. And it's like, here you go, here's your VIN and your chassis back. And they're like, okay.
But it's probably way less cool to see all the same cars racing,
Yes.
Probably.
just different YouTuber
The worst, I would say the hardest part about the entire thing was that we were banned from using standalones. And, because they wanted to sell it as a crate engine package, which you understand. You get that. But 90% of people are going to get that motor and put a standalone on it if they're swapping it. And two,
supply the ECU.
not only that, but like, there's probably cheater kits out there or people made it work. And when they I'll never forget, like one of the guys there comes out. He was kind of like a handler of all of us. And he comes out and he goes, okay, guys, I think your cars are going to get teched. Teched, is that what it's called? You're going to get teched? And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And we literally popped our hood and they were just like, seems good. I'm like, wow. So like, we were like, we should have.
a little Dodge.
No, we were literally like, we should have put like an M-Tron in this thing or something and just been
Motec.
done. Yeah.
LS swapped it.
Yeah, but
Would have been cheaper.
Put a valve cover on there. It says Dodge.
And Weston was there too, and Weston I think blew his clutch up the night before, and he was up all night. And he was over it, and like Weston's such a champ, dude. That guy is so chill, and he was like, "I'll be there when I be there." Like everybody was so over it. Colette had this really cool. I think it's called a Dodge Plymouth Lancer or whatever it was called. It was really cool.
Two frame,
full drag car, four link. I was like, I have no chance against that thing. And I think that was the only, because we were encouraged to like banter against each other online. I think that was like the only semi-mean thing I said. I was like, wow, way to buy your way into this with a drag car. And I secretly I thought the car was really cool,
Yeah, it was a cool car, and like, I mean,
but that's when I knew I had no chance. It was like Demonology is a super nice guy. He had a really well set up car. Another guy named Corrupt Builds built this beautiful Barracuda drag car. Weston just took a Challenger and just put it in there.
He took the challenge. He
faceplated the trans.
He took the Charger because he did the first season.
That's right.
So he took the car they gave him. And I guess, I don't know if he just didn't give it back. I don't know how that happened, but he just basically reused the car. So it made his life easier.
Yeah.
that was a good move.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had to race Alex Taylor, which I knew I'd be a goner anyway. Because she was in her, like the Motor Trend built drag car.
$100,000 drag car that was supposed to beat all these cars.
Yeah, it was sick. But I was like, damn, there's no way.
Yeah.
When you got the steamrollers, she's super nice. She was super nice, super cool to hang out with. But yeah, oh my God, I'm just glad it's over.
The classic marketing teams trying their best out here, but
I sent the most polite long ass letter ever of everything that happened, and I had it with underlined bullet points, like
highlighted.
Like, here's everything you did that screwed me.
Did they do it again after that?
Yeah,
they're still doing it.
They asked me to come back, and I said
that's
no.
a bold move.
But I will say, the people in charge now are way more car knowledgeable.
Well, I think
they have to be.
That's
they
good.
absolutely have to be.
Dodge has sold 3 different times since then. The actual company. You know, they've changed from Fiat to Stellantis, and now there's something else.
I think they're still Stellantis,
I
right?
have no idea.
I think there's.
I thought Fiat still owned them, to be honest.
That's probably just part of the conglomerate, but
Well, they're Chrysler, then Fiat, then
I can't keep up
Stellantis.
anymore. But
They've hopped around a little.
Yeah.
just a wee bit. But yeah, it what an experience, dude. What an
Sounds
experience.
fun. You should do it again, and then
I
tell
was
us
asked
the
to
story.
do it again. Well,
I'll come partake. I'll come help.
no. Unless you got a $50,000, $60,000 budget, my guy.
We can find money.
Man,
Yeah, I lost. I think like
I'm gonna go to a
55
quick bank
grand.
trip real quick.
you might own the most expensive Magnum,
Magnum ever
probably
that
can.
was stolen in Atlanta, by the way.
After you
No,
built it?
before.
Okay.
In the
That was
Carfax.
the cool story about the car. It was stolen, and then you built it into like a Hellcat.
Yeah.
I feel like Magnums, they kind of give that stolen vibe.
Yeah, look at them.
Honestly,
Look at them.
most Dodges give stolen vibes.
That's true.
Unless
It's
it's
the
a
number
Viper.
one takeover choice of choice. Like,
That's the go-to.
Yeah.
And Magnums even fit that a little bit more because they're the early body
Yeah.
style.
Oh yeah.
hey man, got Scat Pack, bro.
Yeah, dude. Freaking
Yeah,
Magnums.
dude. Yeah, dude.
Underrated.
I
They
will
were so
say,
cool though. I liked them a lot.
I will say the one shining light of that project is that it sounds so good. Because out of desperation, we had to do turn downs. And it just,
Yeah.
it's the best sounding Hellcat red I've ever heard.
You should do a burnout contest with it.
I should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be a great use
It's
of
a
it.
great
Let's
burnout car.
do it.
Yeah. You know what? Off the lines party every year. I always bring it out now. It's so fun.
Bring it down to Cletus and Cars in April
Oh,
for the
yeah,
burnout
that'd be
contest.
fun.
Yeah,
would
that'd be
a
fun.
Great use
That'd
of
be
that
fun.
thing.
Why didn't I think of that? I should do that.
We should go to it. I've never been to a Cleveland Cars. We should do that.
This is a good
Gotcha.
event.
This
It's a
one
good
down
event.
here is like already sold out.
Oh wow,
Like, and it's not until April.
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I saw Garrett made a post that the Freedom 500 was already sold out.
Yep.
And again, not even April.
There's plenty of time still to buy tickets, and it's done. But there's 2 concerts as well, so that probably helps a little bit. Two
Yeah,
country music.
I think Chase Matthews was. I don't know who the other
Yeah.
one was.
He's a
but
big car
that's
guy,
cool.
which is cool.
That was cool.
Yeah.
He was drag racing at the Christmas tree race with his LS
That's
swap
cool.
Jeep. Like
Hell
a
yeah.
turbo LS swap Jeep. So it's like, all right, that's pretty cool.
That is dope.
He trailered it down with the tour bus.
Love it. That is even cooler.
Yeah.
Reminds me of I visited Kyle from Boosted Boys in December just for literally a day. I came down to visit family in St. Augustine for Christmas. Showed up Christmas Eve, drove all the way to Busch Gardens with them, did Busch Gardens, drove all the way back, and then spent Christmas with them. And then 26th, I drove all the way back here and did the Platycee. And I saw the MR2 with the Christmas tree still on it. I was like, that's pretty sick.
That's a fun race.
it
Every
looks
year,
fun.
That
Christmas
looks
tree race.
like a lot of fun.
It's kind of probably like your drift event where it's just like a chill,
fun,
hanging
chilled
out.
out.
Like it's not super serious.
Yeah.
People don't take it
Do
too
that with the Magnum.
close.
I'll get annihilated.
So,
Yeah,
Christmas
true.
tree on the Magnum.
I mean, most of us do.
Yeah.
Even me, I get pretty beat up
with
with
the
that type of deal.
with the Camaro?
Yeah, people are way faster than me. I've had bad showings though. I've anytime there's a Christmas tree near one of my cars, it's bad luck. it doesn't like it. I don't know why.
It's
I've
just
actually-
anti-Christmas, I guess.
It doesn't like Christmas. I've won the Grinch award. I got those Grinch shoes
There you go.
because I had a bad decorations. They called me the Grinch.
Oh my god.
That's cool. I like that. That's a good story.
Yeah, it makes it fun, you know? I like getting the Grinch award. And then my thought was to continue to get the Grinch award was to break in and steal everybody's decorations the night before.
Oh yeah.
That's a next level power move.
That's like top
You mean
tier
like
Grinch.
how I was sleeping in a hotel and you completely graffitied my beater car
I
during
did
the
do
beater
that.
trip?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I want to do that again so bad, but I just don't know how it would do. But maybe just for fun, because that was so much fun.
You should all do it.
Yeah,
it's
$500
fun.
shitty cars.
Dude.
They don't exist anymore.
No.
I don't think $500 cars exist anymore.
Yeah, in the corners of Craigslist
Maybe
somewhere.
$1,500
Yeah,
cars.
inflation. Just
Dude, that Lincoln
shitboxes
Town
got
car,
more expensive.
that Lincoln Town car was unkillable.
We had a Crown Vic.
Yeah.
We had a crisp Crown Vic
for 800, was it 500 or 800 bucks? Whatever.
Regardless, like you're not finding a Crown Vic for that price. A good running Crown Vic.
That thing was mint until
I
I
think
pit maneuvered it.
Garrett
Sorry.
just owns all of the Crown Vics.
He does.
in the state of Florida, maybe the East Coast.
It is definitely the best argument of a YouTuber/influencer increasing the price of something. Like, because you hear that all the time.
A lot of them like to claim it.
Yeah,
that they've influenced the market.
I never do. Like,
I mean, the amount of Crown Vics that man has is crazy.
how big is that fleet now? I don't even know.
I've likely negatively influenced markets where people see my cars and they're like, I don't want to buy one of those. Maybe the opposite, you know what I mean? There's no way I've positively made an effect on this.
I've had this happen like over my career with RX-7s because I've had that car for 12 years. And it hurts me inside every time this happens. Someone like, I'll be at the racetrack and someone will come talk to me and they're super pumped. And like, hey, I bought an RX-7 because of you. And I'm like, don't put that evil on me.
I get that with S chassis a lot.
Don't
I'm like,
do that to me.
No.
This was the worst financial mistake of your life. And I'm like, is that still Rotary? Like, oh yeah, I love Rotary. Oh no. No, son.
I have a noticeable difference between people who say, David, I bought a Mustang because of you, and I bought an S chassis because of you.
They have like bags under their eyes, and they're like kind of like decrepit looking.
Like
You
Gollum,
can tell
like,
the difference.
they're like reaching for SR20 swap. Like,
The depression has just gone through
but the
them.
Mustang people are always like, yeah, it's been a great experience.
We're happy guys. Super pumped.
And it's not like you're telling people like my experience has been so great with my S chassis. You should go buy one.
It's only been this is a bad idea. Like,
Yeah.
don't.
I remember like publicly when I had my whole Rotary bullshit thing that happened. Like I publicly just like put everything out there. I'm like, this has gone horribly wrong. None of this worked right.
I'm not a purist for any car besides
What makes you say that?
RX-7s. Yeah. But RX-7s are like where I'm kind of like, they should have rotaries. Like that's my only car that I'm like,
I like.
It's a lifestyle.
get
It's
it.
not even like a car maintenance thing. It's a complete lifestyle to maintain a rotary.
Yeah, like I'm on both sides. Like I see both. Like I love rotaries. I still like rotaries. Like we go to Gridlife. Rob Dom brings his like 3-rotor out or the 4-rotor, and then I'll have the LS car, and then we'll pit next to each other, and then we just shit talk each other about LS versus rotary the entire weekend, and it's always a lot of fun. But for me, it was like I couldn't afford to run a rotary. It was like we were talking about like.
You have premixing and like all this stuff.
I get it. I understand. I've been around a lot of LS drag cars that are RX-7s, but it always makes me a little bit sad.
I get it. But then like the way I see it is I'd rather see a swapped RX-7 than not see an RX-7. And that's what always made me like I don't want to see it like rot in a junkyard. I'd rather be like, oh, hell yeah, RX-7, like JZ, LS, Coyote, whatever it is. It's like, at least it's there, and it's alive, and it's still going.
I drove a 1UZ twin-turbo FB RX-7 one time. It ran like a low 9 or something. Yeah.
That's cool.
But yeah, it spat oil everywhere. Blow-by was crazy.
I will also say that I don't really care to see the RX-7s that are like a nice RX-7, but then it's like, you know, like, not quite like Rob's, but like there's a couple other 4-rotor ones that have like 3 turbos, and it's all kinds of weird shit, and you're just kind of like, I don't know. There's something special about an RX-7 to me, and I don't find that like you can cut up a Supra, I don't care about a Supra. Like
I've drifted an LS swap Supra. It was just bananas.
Just so we know the RX-7 we're talking about. That is the RX-7 we're talking about.
It's a nice car. It looks a lot like the one of the dudes that works for Vaughn. He has a RX-7 kind of similar.
Oh.
Who's that?
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes. Oh my God.
probably
I'm
know who that
blanking.
is.
It's the drift car.
Yeah. Oh, I'm completely
It's the same
blanking right
color
now.
with a big wing.
Same color, big wing.
I'm completely blanking out right now.
I probably know this person.
do know what I'm talking about,
If I
though.
saw the car.
He drives that thing. He drives the shit out of that car.
Have you ever been to the Artera lab?
No.
It's pretty cool. They have a lot of cool stuff in there, and the last time I went there was to celebrate Denofa's championship, and it was cool. We walked in last time. I've been there twice. The first time was to do stuff with my car and do some filming with them. The second time was for the Denofa thing. I walked in and they had Vaughn's like 05 Mustang, the Falcon one, rebuilt.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to see because like that's the car that took on Japan like the first time, you know, and it's just neat to see the history of that. And that facility is really cool because it was an ex-NASCAR facility. And there's just space, everywhere.
It seems super badass.
It's big, it's
Vaughn's
bad.
RTR is awesome.
It really is. I mean, and the S650 drag cars, FD cars are just badass, dude.
I've thought about that, about like somebody pitching Vaughn about a drag car RTR.
Yeah.
Like somebody campaigning like all the RTR stuff on a drag car would be pretty cool.
Oh, like the liveries on a drag car.
This could be
dope.
But even just all the parts and stuff, because like you can.
Oh yeah,
you
like
can
a Spec 5 kind of style.
Yeah, but then just make it a drag car. Yeah. It would look pretty sick.
Yeah, because they use like the Ford Performance superchargers and all that. That'd be sick.
You
I
should
think
do
that'd
it.
Be cool.
You should do it.
I don't like working with companies. I try to work with as few as possible.
Makes sense. We've got the lead painted room, the tinfoil hats. Like it's just me.
I try to peel
Mind
stickers
control.
off my car, not add the stickers to my car.
I get it.
As much as I love these guys in these companies, I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy going back and forth with companies. I don't enjoy feeling like I have to please someone that's not myself or the viewer.
Makes sense.
That's
kind of it. That's where
cool.
it stops. Is myself, the viewer, and my family is kind of all I care to.
Not to mention, the part will get there on time if you just buy it.
Does help.
That's what I've learned. You want it quick, buy it.
Yeah.
Pay full price.
And even then, sometimes it may not be quick.
It may not.
I only
get there.
told a
harass
20-minute
them.
story about parts not showing up. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. You
so
can try.
terrible.
I was pretty bummed when Chelsea stepped down.
Yeah,
I get it though.
It's
he's such a
sad one.
personality, like such a like staple and like pillar of the community. Like it was like you just had to see him.
Potentially the best driver I've ever witnessed.
His style is really awesome. I rode with him it's so funny. I've ridden with Vaughn a lot, and Vaughn's awesome, of course. At Ford Fest, I finally got to ride with Chelsea, and it is this wild ride. It's very like backy, almost more Japanese.
It's
like
snappy.
It's super snappy style, but it doesn't feel like bad.
Yeah.
Because some people have this very like jerky. Like he whips it, he just confidence.
It's aggressive.
It's aggressive confidence.
Yeah.
Did
No.
something.
It probably just stopped recording because it ran out of video.
Womp womp. We're just having such a nice time.
No, it's okay. We don't even have to. The camera's not that important, honestly. At this
Bada
point.
bing. I told you it'd go by fast.
No, I love doing these. This is so much fun. Like
0 minutes left.
I like when we used to do our podcast and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna put another. I'm just gonna run your
Audio.
If you're watching this still, just visually, sorry, there's just gonna be a blank. Like there'll just be like
It'll just be a picture.
screen. It'll be like that. Yeah, they'll be okay.
It'll be okay.
It's fine.
But
it's fine.
I've often said like Chelsea watching him drive is one of the best drivers as far as control, but the judging never really lent to
his style.
Yeah.
Yep.
He drove great, but that's not how they judge. Kind
Yeah, no, it was so funny because like I'll never forget. I think it was either a year or two ago at Road Atlanta. There was a one more time that universally you could feel the entire place go, no.
Yeah.
Like he won. And there's boos and all this stuff. And obviously he was going to overdrive the next round because he was like, are you kidding me? And who could blame him? I mean, it was blatantly obvious he had won the round. And I remember the judges like trying to like save themselves going, oh, well, we one more time today because of this.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, get out of here. And he comes in and just spins out on the last exit because, things happen, man. Yeah. And I just remember everybody felt like he got robbed. Everybody did.
Well, even the hood incident was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, I was there for that. That was crazy.
It's funny. I mean,
You want to go, bro?
the fact, like, I feel like Vaughn doesn't really like that kind of stuff. Like, hit the way that
As
Chelsea
like a
handled the,
professional,
yeah.
But I fully agreed with Chelsea on that one.
Like that's what you're gonna complain
But
about.
I get it as team owner and like a professional feel and everything, and like I get he probably didn't like that.
I get it. Like, yeah, like
I get
there's
both sides of it.
There's so many ways to look at that whole situation from like Vaughn's angle, Chelsea's angle, and then the other team like just trying to like win. And they're doing everything in their power. Like, yeah, they'll protest it because it's in the rules. They technically did break the rules. So yeah, you're shitty for it, but
It's like a gentleman's agreement
in
kind of
your
thing.
ability to do it. No one's gonna like you for it, and that's just how it is.
I felt it was kind of like, you know, the cherry on top that they crashed on the
Oh yeah. On
Nothing against
Instant
that team
karma.
really, but like
Yeah.
you protest kind of like a bullshit protest,
then you crash.
and then you wad your car up
yeah,
on the first entry.
like yeah, like what?
That's kind of like kind of just adds up.
Did not bode well for that. It didn't go well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that. My biggest complaint with like I love drifting. I love driving and drifting. It's so much fun. But the biggest complaint for me with drifting is the just judging aspect of it. Because like no, in any other motorsport, it's who is fastest, who is first, who did
It's
what.
so subjective.
It's all
Figure skating.
It's all objective.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you need to know like we all know who's best at the time.
Yeah.
And then drifting, it's like, well, like all three of us, we could be drift judges right now, and you cannot agree with me, and like vice versa, and like somehow we come to an agreement, and then someone's generally on the like if we don't all
Yeah.
agree, someone's on the other side.
Watch
and then,
any
like,
FD live chat. That's all you
it
need
just
to know.
goes from there, and that's the biggest complaint I've got with drifting.
Yeah,
It's
that'll
like, it's
always
just
be
hard.
the crutch of it.
Yeah.
I mean, burnout contests are in the same way. It's judged, so there's
I feel-
always going to be
yeah.
contention. Not always, because the most recent one, the Australian came and clearly won.
Oh, sure.
There was contention for second place, maybe, but first place there was no question.
Was this at Cletus and Cars?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was an Australian Hilux came and
Was it green?
yeah.
clearly won. Yeah.
Oh, he was at the Burnyard
Oh.
Hood again too, and it was
Yeah.
crazy.
What is his name? Mike?
They used
Kyle.
tiny
Kyle,
tires
that was
too,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just done.
was an instant win. It was nobody could
The
question
smoke
it.
literally happens instantaneously. It's
Yeah.
like, holy crap,
That's an
dude.
awesome vehicle. Big blower on that thing.
And
it's like,
I
whoa.
love seeing those things. What are those what are those things called? Like the
So,
massive
like a
blower.
1471.
Yeah, those like the old like diesel, like Detroit blowers. Or
Those are-
wasn't that where they started from? That kind of like big blower.
They're
thing?
kind of like a diesel style blower
Okay.
from way back, but
Yeah.
those are all like blower shop. Like a couple companies make those
Okay.
like that, the screw style blowers, and it's badass.
They're ridiculous,
super
dude.
dope.
Where you can't even see where you're going.
I love it.
Reminds me of the whole Talladega Nights. I sure do love Fig Newtons.
Yeah, dude.
But I can't see shit.
Yeah, I mean the burnout contest guys tell me like because you know they get so caught up. First they point their exhaust, so like you look under their car and it's individual headers, but everyone's pointing a different way to blow the smoke out. And then you have to like find like a spot, like a sign that you can see that's like up, so you can know your bearings.
Like a landmark.
Yeah,
Yeah, how do you
like
even see? Like, it's insane.
don't.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you're trying to go fast, because some people go slow, some people rip it, you really have to have some skill. It's more surprising than most people.
Yeah, instead of just like flooring it.
I
being
drove
like, "That's-"
Vargas's burnout car, the FB. Dude, the fireballs and everything. You just can't see a thing, dude.
Yeah.
You can't see a thing. I mean,
Shout out to my boy Mike.
yeah, I drove his 3-rotor, and that was pretty awesome. The thing was fast. But after every single thing we did, pop the hood, check everything, put premix in it. It's a whole thing, you know?
But
a
also
process.
because they are Mike's personal cars, they're built to Mike personal car standards. I love the guy, one of my best friends, I call him all the time, but his personal car standards are very different than his customer car standards.
Yeah.
As mechanics do normally. Their personal cars are just held together enough.
Yeah, and then you just, once it breaks, you rebuild and you do it again.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to last the whole time. It just needs to last for however long you're doing the thing. And then you fix it after the thing.
I just remember he did this nasty burnout, like in front of his shop, and he got like 3 texts from friends going, "Yo, chill, I can hear you." Like you got to stop before
Yeah.
people show up.
I do miss that about like the peripheral port motor that we had in my car. It was so damn loud, and it idled so great. It just had that like consistent brap at like, I think that thing out around like 2,000 RPM, and it was so much fun. And you would just hear it from like quarter mile away.
Yeah.
You'd hear when we started the car. We had to run 4 mufflers in that car, and you would still hear it.
We could hear Top Fuel from my house.
Oh my
when
God,
they were drag
dude,
racing.
yeah.
Like, from right here, I could hear them at the drag strip racing.
How far is that away?
13 miles, like straight across. And there's a lot of houses and businesses in between their apartment complexes, and I could hear them like, brrr.
That is
wild. Just shut it
wild.
down. It'd like be like a quick blip.
Have you ever been to Top Fuel?
No.
It's incredible.
No, I never have.
It is incredible.
I've been wanting to go at one point.
That
Dude,
piston's
it's
from Clay Milliken's Top Fuel car, that black one.
versus
That's a
what
used piston.
Yeah. The difference is pretty extreme.
I've seen
My 2J1.
Yeah.
one of my buddies has a Top Fuel piston on his desk at his shop, and it is way worse than this one.
Yeah.
Like the
That one's
wrist
clean.
pin is just
That one's
straight
real
broken
clean.
in the middle and everything. But yeah, this thing is.
It's a crispy one. I know. I was
is.
like, are you sure this is used? But you
This
can see
looks
a little bit of wear
I mean,
mark.
yeah, there's like a little bit of wear there, but like
bit.
it looks. I mean, you could send it for sure.
I was like, oh, I should keep trying to collect stuff. Maybe I could put together a little Top Fuel motor.
Okay, so get enough parts.
Yeah, there's
For
enough broken stuff.
one pass, yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we got to wrap this up. This was awesome. I always ended off, where can they follow you? That Dude in Blue everywhere. It's pretty.
That Dude in
Pretty
Blue
straightforward,
everywhere.
always in
Yeah,
the
at That
description.
Dude in Blue, YouTube,
Yep.
Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff.
YouTube for the most part.
Yeah.
For all the good stuff.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, all the cool car reviews.
Thanks, dude.
James.
Mine is less, whatever it is, interesting. It's James FC Wood. That's my Instagram,
James
and
FC
I think
Wood.
I have a Twitter. And
You might have some hate mail coming your way for LS swapping.
That's cool. I mean,
What else is
I
new,
got a
Cooper?
bunch when that happened. And then same with Facebook. And then I need to start YouTube up again. So just search James Wood RX7 on YouTube, and you're gonna
James
find the
Wood
channel.
RX7.
Give him some motivation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I have no job, so like that's a great motivation right there.
That is true. That is true. You have some time to edit and post
And
things.
I need to continue building the car. So like we got a race in like a month, and it's not ready. So
It's
there's a lot of stuff that'll happen.
Kind of makes sense to film
Yeah.
what you're doing.
May
I
as
tell
well.
everybody, I'm like, you wouldn't not have an Instagram, right? You have one of
Yeah.
those. Why
Yeah.
not just post
Yeah.
it on YouTube?
Just do it.
Yeah, get out of your comfort zone a little bit. You got to film yourself. It's tough. A lot of people.
For sure. We'll do that.
Well, good deal, guys. Thanks for coming on. We'll see you guys next time.